Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Victory Never Sleeps. I am Witan Brandy Callahan, filling in for the Gythia Matthew Flavel, as he is traveling for our national event, Charming Up the Plow. And with me tonight, I have Gythia's Shiela McNallen and Gythia Catie Erickson. Hello, ladies. How are we tonight?
Doing very well. Thank you.
Doing great. How are you?
Doing wonderful, ladies. So thanks for everyone for coming in. First thing that we want to do is let you know why the Gythia is not here and why the Gythias are taking over. It is because him and many of our other awesome Witan and Gothar and folk builders and members are currently getting ready to head to Florida for our National Charming of the Plow events. Tickets are still on sale. If you do want to go to this event, contact Go the Trent East or the Hoff Steward, Mike Joyner. They can get you all set up and ready to go. It's going to be a great time. Please check that out. Get your ticket. Go support your folk down in Florida. So tonight is going to be one of those nights where we just talk about all the things that interest the Gythias. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. We do also have questions that have been lined up for a couple days. So we will get to all the questions. If you do want to get your question at the head of the line or you just got something to say, go ahead and check in the comments section and there is some information on how to send us a donation and your question will go to the front of the line. All right. So one thing we wanted to do tonight is with all of our leadership traveling and kind of off and away tonight, we want to take a moment to talk about them while they can't say anything back. So we're going to be highlighting some of our leadership tonight. And I do want to start with, and I think Nick has us prepared there, I want to start with our newly named Folk Builder Coordinator, Nathan Erlinson. So Nathan Erlinson has been with us for a few years now, and he's made a really, really big impact. And he does a lot of great things for our folk. He does a lot of great things for Baldershoff District. And he is also now our folk builder coordinator. So he is responsible for training up our new folk builders, getting them set up with all of our processes, making sure that we're all doing the right thing at the right time. So I would like to give him a big shout out and let anybody know if you are interested in folk building. Please reach out to folk builder go the folk builder coordinator Nathan Erlinson, and that would be your first step in being a folk builder, getting involved in leadership, and serving your gods, your church, and your folk. Also, you can reach out to your Witan in any of your districts. So that would be myself in Baldershoff District. That would also be our amazing Witan Clifford Erickson over there in Thorshoff northern part. He would be a great one to contact there. You can reach out to Witan Svan Harrell, Witan Daniel Young. You can also reach out to the law speaker, Alan Turnage. He can get you squared away there. But reach out to any of your Witan. But also, if you are interested in folk building, please contact Folk Builder Coordinator Gothi Nathan Erlinson. And as we go there, I want to just talk to Gythia McNallen and Gythia Erickson about how important and how close they've become to the folk builders in their districts and the impact that those folk builders can make for the folk and for the church. Gythia McNallen, would you like to go first?
Certainly. Wow. We have a very large district. If you happen to look at it on a map, we include about half the world because we go up to Alaska, across Western Canada, down to Australia, Hawaii, over to all the Western states, to the Rocky Mountains, and up again to the Canadian border. That is a very large area, and with a lot of people spread all over that. A lot of our members are in very remote areas of that district, of our Odenshoff district. So it's really important for our folk builders to attempt to reach out. And we're actually, and that's one thing that Witan Brandy and also Nathan Erlinson have done, is to help us get set up. So we're doing that in an efficient way, but also in a way that we are really checking in to see how people are doing. We want to do that. And I depend on my folk builders to do that, to make those contacts, to make the phone calls, to let me know how things are going. Is there anybody who's struggling right now? What kind of an issue is there? Those kind of calls come in during the day. And it's up to us as the Gythias, in my case, is really pretty much my responsibility in our district to make those phone calls and check in on people, make sure that they're doing okay. But everything from hosting events, writing articles for the newsletter, moving on in their own, AFA careers, if you could call it that, but to push themselves and work towards excellence so that they can rise up from apprentice to oath folk builder, and from there on to the Gothar program. And we have 3 people who are in that process right now, 3 out of 8. And that's a wonderful thing to behold and to celebrate with the people in our district, which is called Odenshoff District. So that's kind of the recap of that. I also depend, Odenshoff here in California really uses our folk builders. They're very essential to make sure everybody knows what's going on and help me plan the monthly events, because a lot of it falls on my shoulders just because I'm here, I'm close in, I don't have outside work like other people do. And I love it because it's my home. Odenshoff is home to me, and started in 2015, and I've been here a long time, and that's not about to change. So there we go.
Thank you, ma'am. Gythia Erickson, can you tell us how important your folk builders are over there on that side of the country?
Absolutely. So similarly to Odenshoff, the Thorshoff district is really large. We stretch all the way down to South Carolina. We stretch all the way up into Canada. We stretch into Europe. There's a lot of territory to cover, and we have a lot of members. And we don't have very many folk builders, not as many as we need to do the work. And the job of a folk builder it's huge. Our folk builders reach out to members to check on them to see how they're doing. They reach out to help them get things settled when things need to get settled. Our folk builders are our number one point of contact with our folk. They're the ones who help them find a Gothar when they need help with something. They do a lot of the work that we really, really desperately need to have happen in order for the AFA to run. As a church, and our Gothar are also folk builders. We all also do the work. We all do as much as we can to carry the weight, but our folk builders are the ones who really carry the burden of that work. And without them, we wouldn't have an Asatru Folk Assembly the way we have it right now. We probably wouldn't have all the hops that we have now, because without them, we can't do the work. So our folk builders are essential. As McNallen, Shiela, as Shiela pointed out earlier, if you want to become one of the Gothar one day, you have to be a folk builder first. So for a lot of people, that's a stepping stone, but I feel like it really needs to be stressed. Our folk builders are what make the Asatru Folk Assembly happen. They're the ones who schedule events. They're the ones who host events. They're the ones who connect people to each other, to the church, to our Gothar when it's necessary. And it is a very admirable and very worthwhile job for people to do. And I can't stress that enough. I know that I rely on the folk builders in my district a lot. My husband, Witan Erickson, and we can't do the job entirely by ourselves. We can't do it without them. So they are some of the most important people in the AFA.
Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am. And we do have a donation from Ronald Blake, $50 for help a folk family in need of a home. Thank you, Ronald. You are consistently donating to your folk and to your church, into the church every week, and we can't appreciate your generosity enough. We can't thank you enough for that. You are always here to support the folk in need, or donate to the HOF with our Amazon wish lists, or just send for things that we need or projects that we're doing. So thank you, sir. Your generosity is very, very appreciated. And the first question that we have tonight comes from Allie, and this is for the Gythias. What are some ways to bring our children into our practice and teach them Asatru at home? Gythia, Erickson, would you like to take that one first?
Sure. As a mom of 2 young children, I'm definitely firmly in the mom zone of life right now, and I like to brag about my son a lot. Owen is very, very in tune with Asatru. He asks some of the most amazingly deep questions for a 5, almost 6-year-old, about death, about the lore, about all kinds of stuff. I'm bragging because he's mine, but I do really think that he's a remarkable kid because I'm, his mom and whatever. But one of the most important things that you can do is, and I stand by this, we started reading him the lore when I was pregnant. Theoretically, they can hear you while they're in the womb, right? And we've been reading it to him ever since. We've read him stories from Delaire's North Myths and from the Children of Odin. And we've read them consistently since before he was born. And he knows the lore better than most of the adults I know. And when he asks questions, we answer them. That to me is the number one thing you can do. Just constantly read the stories, make it exciting, make him know, or make them know the lore. Because if they know the stories and you treat them like they're real, then they become real. And then there's all kinds of little things you can do. When we moved to the house we live in now, Witan Svan Harold gave us a little bell with like a dragon, and we mounted it in the central part of our house on the wall in a door frame. And now every night before bed, part of our routine is we do a group hug, and then we go over to the bell and we each ring the bell in honor of the house white. And we all say something like Owen often says, house white, full of might, keep away the evil spirits and the monsters tonight. And then he'll ring the bell and we'll hail the house white. And Alice usually just hails the house white. So that makes the land Vitir and the house Vitir real to them, because we've just turned it into such a normal thing. Like if we forget by accident one night because we're busy, the children will remind us we need to ring the bell. And we usually leave an offering at least once a week, and the kids get very excited about choosing what they're going to get to leave the house white. And they almost always choose candy from their own personal stashes or something, because they like to give them something of their own, not just a throwaway thing, but something they value, because we've taught them that giving, we ask the house white for gifts, and the gifts are his protection from the evil spirits and the nightmares. And so we let him know that he's welcome in our home and that we're grateful for all he does for us. And that gift cycle is important, and they know about that. It's all about the little things, the everyday things. When you go outside and you see a squirrel, maybe that's the squirrel that climbs the world tree to whisper insults. Or when you see a cat, maybe that's one of Freya's cats, or 2 ravens or crows more often than not. Maybe those are Odin's ravens. We have a hawk that likes to nest in a tree outside of our house. Not nest, he lands there a lot. And Owen asked me the first time we saw him if we thought maybe that was Freya in disguise coming to check us out and see what we were up to. So we encourage that, because that makes it real to them. And if it's real to them, it's something that it buries deep into their hearts, and it'll stay with them. So there's a long story short is just have everyday little things. It doesn't have to be big. Little things. Read them the stories. Find daily associations. Have an altar. Owen is old. When he turned 5, he got a little altar in his own room, and we bought him a Thor statue to put on it. And he's collected little things. He has a seashell from somewhere, and he got a set of runes as a gift that he has on his little altar, and like little berries that he found outside one time, and he just collects little things to put on his altar. And now he does little prayers by himself, and he likes to do rune draws all by himself, even though he doesn't know what the runes mean. He has to ask us, but he likes to do that stuff all on his own. Alice doesn't care as much. Alice is still very much into, I'm going to do what I want, so whatever, Barbie dolls and stuff, but she knows the stories. She's only 3 though, so she's got a little bit of time. But yeah, make it every day. Make it little things. They don't have to be big grand gestures. And that's, I think, something that hangs a lot of people up. Me and my husband, when we first found out we were having kids, it was a bit of a hang up. Like, how do we make sure this is real? How do we make sure they're Asatru? Little things every day. Find those associations. It doesn't have to be big. And that is the end of my long rant for now.
Gythia, Shiela, you've been working with children for a very, very long time. I won't say the 3 varies, but I will say the very,
very long time. Yes,
yeah.
indeed. Yeah, well, I think some of the things I've seen recently with the families that come to Odenshof, I'm very impressed at the quality of religious life that our families are presenting to their children and encouraging. For all families, though, and which something my husband Steve and I have been doing consistently for quite a long time, but we didn't start that way, and that is doing meal blessings. So if you come to any of our hofs or probably any events hosted by AFA Folk Builders, you're bound to experience food blessings because we do it basically with every meal. Why? Because we're very appreciative of what's before us. Yes, we make the effort to do that ourselves, but still there are gifts of life that come to us, and we always acknowledge that, the animals that died, because with that, their life force, with all that power and energy that they had, comes into us and allows us to do our work in this world. I've got a cat here on one side. She's very busy right now. But I also know that a lot of our families have children partaking in food blessings as well. And it doesn't have to be memorized. It doesn't have to be the same every time, but give them the experience of having a little bit of ownership of that, of leading the family and things like that, simple little rituals and things that are worthy of acknowledging. Certainly lighting a candle. I want to talk about ancestors. For me, I was ready for Asatru because I was always aware of my ancestors from the earliest time. I didn't know except that they came from Ireland, and that was enough, right? And that was instilled in me in a very early age, and that's how I've always connected. But with that, I think one good example of how you bring the ancestors into your life for your children is something that Witch and Harold does at Yule every year. And each night of Yule, the children receive a gift. And the gift comes with the name of one of the ancestors. That is the person who sent that gift. A pair of socks, a hat, a book, those things. And then at that point, tell the story, show the pictures, get them really familiar with their ancestors. And then you say, explain to them that we are doing this. Asatru is who we are. And it comes to us through that long, long line of ancestors whose names we don't even know anymore, but they did what we do. And we're just like them, and we honor them and love them. And that's really important for parents to get children knowing that this is not a moment in time, but we have that long line that we need to always respect and honor. And then they have responsibility too. So I have to say, when I was teaching 5th grade, I would often go to the whiteboard at the front of the classroom, and I would put these words up there because I think they're a maxim for anybody. And it is, we are our deeds. And I would also say to them, something to think about, is that voicing an opinion is a deed. Keeping it in your brain and thinking about it, holding it tight to yourself, but not sharing it, it doesn't become a deed at that point. The deeds, the ones that can be harmful, are oftentimes when we act out publicly against others. So just remind children that they are their deeds. It's their actions that become visible to others. And it doesn't mean they can't talk to you about what's bugging them. They need to do that too. But it's that self-control. And, you know, you need to say, hey, guess what, kids? We do that too. We have to be aware of what we say and do to others. And so it's being a good model to your children. Talk 9 noble virtues, but also other virtues, because children need ones like respect, responsibility, all those ones that you want them to know when they're in their very early ages. in their early years, so that to share, to be patient, to work on impulsiveness and have them wait, all those things that the little guys need. And they of course will get the 9 noble virtues throughout their lives, but there are other things, and just reinforce good values with them, and they're going to be outstanding adults when they get there. But yeah, people who pass, lighting candles, remembering birthdays, death dates, those kinds of things. Let children know that those people who lived before, who are all part of our family line still in memory, that they still matter. So those are just a couple of things I would say. But I do love everything that Catie said. I wish I had little kids around in my home. It's been many, many years. But if I could do things over, also let them explore. Let them just kind of create their own stories about the land whites, land Vatir, or the gods if they want to, if they want to come up with amazing stories and draw pictures, yeah, encourage that kind of stuff. Let them experience Asatru on their own too.
Wise words from both of the Gythias. Thank you very much, ladies. We did have another donation that just came in as well from Gythia Stam. He sent us a donation and it says, "In it to win it, best is half, hail our Gythias." Thank you, Gythia Stam. I do believe that the conversion is complete. Best is half. Well done, sir. Well done. So speaking of Gythia Stam, since he made a donation, let's go ahead and put him on the screen real quick. So Gythia Rob Stam is the dean of our Asatru Academy. He has him, and also Shiela is very involved in that as well. So if you have any questions about the Asatru Academy, how to get your kids enrolled and active in the homeschool program, reach out to him. Also reach out to folk builder Sarah Alt. Sheila, would you like to take a minute to talk about our Asatru Academy while we've got Gythia Stam's picture up there?
Excellent. All right. Well, this is our second year. We have we started with just a K1 program. It's now up to 3rd grade, and we'll soon be pushing on to 6th grade. We have using a program that is all established, and it has basically a very natural, holistic approach to it, and that is the Waldorf program. And what's ideal about that is that it is very kind of open-ended for parents to use it as a guideline, but to also integrate all learning throughout the day. Whatever you do, make it a learning experience for your children. And since this is a homeschooling program, it really is up to the parents to make determination of the rate of speed acquisition of knowledge that the children are getting. You do a lot of that on your own. And we are there to provide religious background, religious stories, and activities for the kids to partake in at the early grades. So there will be artwork and things that children create and get to share. Oftentimes they're in the Runestone Journal. We would love to have the kids get together at some point, and the parents a little bit more than they have been. But when we have had story time online, the children have gotten together and sit and all together get to clap along with the story, especially when Nick Rice is there. Folk builder Nick Rice is a favorite of all the kids. No matter what he reads, it's delightful to them, and they love those. But we have 40 children now in the program, and we're halfway through the year, and we'll be checking in with all the parents and seeing if they need anything. And we're there to help provide support, give them some guidance for any state mandates or anything that they have. And Rob has been wonderful in setting all this up for us. We also have some other great volunteers. But again, it is all volunteer. And I know that there's also a donation link if you would like to make a regular contribution to the Asatru Academy. It would be greatly appreciated. Give us some feedback, please. We'd love that.
Absolutely. And speaking of folk builder Nicholas Rice, I'm pretty sure he's got a picture of himself. He can go ahead and pop up on that screen as well. So folk builder Rice, it was a joke not that long ago when I had the wild idea that we were going to start the monthly membership meetings. And this was over a year ago now that we started the monthly meetings. And Folk Builder Rice decided that he was going to start popping up useful links and pictures and files and all of these things during our membership meetings, right? Well, when we had an idea that maybe we should do a podcast, I knew the perfect guy for the job, and I voluntold him that we would be using his services. And he didn't know anything. I don't know if he didn't know anything, but he didn't know very much about producing, and he didn't know very much about things, but he learned very quickly. And he is a huge part of why Victory Never Sleeps and the AFA is so successful. And speaking of those membership meetings, there is a Baldershof membership meeting on the last Thursday of every month. And Gythia, Erickson, Gythia, McNallen, do you want to share when the other districts have their membership meetings as well? Do you guys have those off the top of your head? Go ahead, Sheila.
Oh, yes. Okay. Ours is the day after theirs. It's the last Friday of the month. Typically should be very close. But anyway, the last Friday of the month, that is for all the members in the Odenshof district. It's 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, 6:30 Alaska time, and Mountain time would be 8:30. And that's usually about as far as we go in our time zones. But join us, please. We have a slate of speakers, and can take questions. We want to see you come on those and join us. Please do.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we do have membership meetings elsewhere around the AFA as well. Gythia, Erickson, would you like to talk about any of the other things that are going on in kind of the Thorshof area with moots and studies, calls, or anything else that you guys have got going on over there on that side of the country?
See, this is where my husband comes in handy, because I'm not the organized one. He's the organized one. I don't remember any of this stuff off of the top of my head. I'm very sorry.
No problem. And I kind of put you on the spot to memorize the calendar. I'm sorry.
No, like I said, I deal with the kids in the folk builders. My husband does the organized stuff because I don't have a brain for that.
Perfect. Well, since we're talking about him, let's throw his picture up on the screen. So for information on what's going on with the Thorshof North District, you should really contact Witan Clifford Erickson. He does manage that district. He wrangles all of those folk builders and takes care of all the folk over there. I'm going to let Gythia Erickson talk about all of the things that Witan Erickson does, because she sees it firsthand, and she sees the time and the dedication and the way his time away from her, his time away from his kids, all the work that he puts in behind the scenes. So can you tell us how awesome your husband is?
If I have to. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I like him. I married him, so I guess that makes me a little biased. But so I know that when Cliff joined the AFA many years ago, and he has been by Matt's side as a Witan member since Matt became Al Sharagodi, or at least shortly after, because I don't know the exact timeline. I was not a member of the AFA at that point, but he's been there with Matt the whole time. He has been lovingly called the tech guy for a very long time, because before Nick came around, my husband was the only one who knew how to do all of the tech stuff. He was the one who had built all of the previous versions of the website, sometimes by scratch. I remember when Owen was a baby, we were on like a Wix type site, WordPress, I think, and they decided they were no longer going to do business with us, and they just shut down our account. We lost everything. We lost the website. There were no backups, and I didn't see Cliff for like 2 weeks because he was busy trying to manually rebuild the website in code from scratch so that it never happened again. He is always available for a call. I mean, I know yesterday he came in from work late. He came in from work late because he was on calls with members. He's always on call with leadership. He's constantly working. He's very careful though. He always makes sure to set aside time. I'll get there. To spend with his kids. It's very important to him to spend time with us as a family. So I know like we sit down and we eat dinner together every night, and we always bless our meals too. I forgot to mention that. I like to do the Alan Tudyk version that they do down at Thorsoft. If you're ever down there, you'll hear it. My husband likes to do the more traditional hammer one that Stephen McNallen does. So we kind of split it up between the two. But he is one of the most dedicated people I know when it comes to the AFA. I don't know that we would have ever gone out on our first date if I hadn't eventually just decided to join the AFA, because I'd been around for a long time. I've been in various heathen and Asatru circles since I was like 19 years old. It's been 18 or something years now. And I'd always been kind of hanging out on the periphery. We knew each other from several different overlapping events and stuff. And finally I was just like, all right, I'll join, whatever. And like 2 days later, he asked me out. So I don't know that it would have ever happened if he weren't in the AFA. Our whole family is centered around the AFA. When I'm not with my kids, I'm doing AFA stuff. And I will admit, I spend a little more time with my kids than I do doing AFA stuff, but that's because they're little. And I don't want to waste that time with them. And I know Cliff feels the same way. But he doesn't have as much of the luxury of stepping away because he's a Witan member. And when you're a Witan member, you don't get to take a break ever. I mean, none of us do. I think all of the Gythias on this call will agree. If you've gotten to the point where you've taken an oath to the AFA as one of our Gothar, there's no such thing as time off. You wake up in the middle of the night for that phone call. You wake up, or you spend hours at a time on a phone call with somebody who needs help. You do all of that. And when you become a Witan, you do all of that also, but you also have to do all the it's the wrong word. All the behind the scenes work that even our Gothar don't see. It's never ending. It's nonstop. And not just my husband, all of the Witan members in the AFA, all of our Gothar too, but mostly the Witan members. You'll never see 90% of what they're doing because they're always on, always working. Yeah, so my husband's pretty cool. He does a lot of stuff. He's dedicated, but he's not the only one. So I have to remember to stop making faces. Sorry, it's just...
You're good. We like your faces, Gythia Erickson. We like your face. All right, Shiela, we've got a question I'd like you to answer, and it is from our member Laura in Sweden. And her question is, what are some of the unique ways in which the women in the AFA leadership can serve our folk?
Oh, wow. Well, women in the AFA in general, obviously. You know, one of our 9 noble virtues is hospitality, and that is absolutely essential. When you meet someone that you've met, maybe even known your whole life, greet them warmly and with love. And when somebody new comes to your home, or you happen to be at a Hof and there's a new member, a new person, even who's inquisitive, make sure you are right there inquiring about the person, asking what brought them there, and making them feel really, really welcome. That is the one thing that I always want to hear from somebody who's been around for a while, is that they say that, wow, really coming to the AFA, coming into our home, coming into a Hof, it always feels like coming home. That is the most important thing that any one woman can do, and is to also support all those other people who are there helping make things happen. At Hofs, you have a group of men who might be out building fires or setting up torches or cutting wood or something. acknowledge when people are doing things, the people in the kitchen, the people taking care of the children. Be there, help, volunteer. Don't just stand on the sidelines. In fact, if you're a shy person, being in the AFA is a perfect place to get over that. I think in fact, that is kind of a common trait, I think, with probably all three women here. I know, yeah, Catie talks about it. I certainly am that way. But being in the AFA has taught me that it's almost selfish to step back and not being engaged, because we do have so much to give people, and to encourage them to come, because this may be the one place in their lives that they feel that it's safe, it's warm, it's friendly, it's a place of learning, a place of spiritual might, because you obviously feel that if you attend a summel or a bloat. It's a place to come together and do all of our rites of passage, marriages, our baby namings, honoring someone who has passed. Those are all things we can do when we're together. And there are not many other groups in the world that can do it, and that do it with the love we have. So I would say just be there for the people that talk to them. If they've got issues going on, reach out to one of the Gythias or a Godar and just say, hey, there's somebody who really needs some help. So kind of be our eyes and ears, let us know what's going on, and be there to step up and even be a folk builder yourself. If you've got kind of inclination, you think you can put in the time, put in the effort it takes to learn it, because there's a lot to learn, but it is one of the most rewarding things that most people say they've ever done. So please consider that, because we need more folk builders throughout all of the AFA.
Absolutely. Gythia Erickson, tell me about that amazing and wonderful Frith Weaver, probably the best Frith Weaver that you know right now.
So that's like the easiest thing I'll talk about all night. A lot of you have probably heard about Heather Young. Many of you have probably gotten random text messages and phone calls from her. Heather is absolutely, inherently the most powerful Frith Weaver I have ever met in my life, without even meaning to. Heather knows how to take the most sour, grumpy person and have them laughing in minutes, sometimes even faster than that. She's one of the kindest individuals I know, and she has started doing this thing recently all by herself. She was struck by inspiration, I guess you will, to just start reaching out to people. And she has been reaching out to people just randomly all over the country for several months now, which is why I say many of you have probably heard from her, or if you have not, expect to, because that's her mission. Her mission is to reach out and just say hi to everybody. And if you are lucky enough to hear from her, please answer. Talk to her, get to know her, because she's one of I could literally sit and talk about how amazing I think Heather is all day. She really is. She's one of the best people in leadership we have in the AFA. I would personally say. And like I said, she inherently embodies everything that a Frith Weaver should be. She's awesome.
What about that husband of hers, though?
He's all right.
He's okay.
So I am uniquely proud of Witan Young, because I was his mentor when he was going through the Godar program, and he has always been very insightful and very thoughtful. And it was a moment of extreme pride for me when he was elevated into the position of Witan. Not because it had anything to do with me. He did that on his own merit, but I watched him when he was starting, and I watched the entire journey to where he is now. I couldn't be more proud of him. And he's very similar to his wife. He's not a woman. He's not a Frith Weaver per se, but he absolutely is the sort of person who can bring people together. He inspires people. He's also one of the most talented, for lack of a better term, he's one of our most talented counselors. When people have problems, I've never known anybody who couldn't talk to Daniel and who wasn't able to walk away feeling at least a little bit better than they did before they started talking to him.
Mhm.
He's amazing, and he's very dedicated, and he, even after suffering a huge, like, massive health crisis, he was up and doing this again, like, days later. He didn't even take enough, what I would call enough time for himself to, like, heal and be better before he was off running, doing the job of Witan and Gythia. So, yeah, they are a power couple. They are two of my very favorite, very best people in the AFA. So, again, could talk all day.
I always kind of talk about like the different, when you look at the Alshira Gythias Witan, there's like different aspects of them, right? And Cliff is very much our voice. Like Cliff is very much our voice, and he's very much our reason in our logic. And if I had to pin down what Daniel would be, it would be heart. Daniel is the heart of a lot of us. So we always say he is one of the best of us. So definitely. Now, Sheila, you've got some very wonderful, a pair of really wonderful ladies over at Odenshof as well, who are excellent frith weavers and who work really, really hard for you. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about folk builder Olivia and what she does over at the Hof and why she's so important to you and to that district?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I find that I'm calling on her for her wisdom at being a lady so much younger than me, but she comes to us with actually quite a background in religious studies. She was in a seminary at one point and has had counseling training and all sorts of things. So it's not surprising that she's not just a folk builder, but she has moved on quickly into the Gothling program because she is truly a lady with great gifts and great insight. What does she do for us? Well, besides coming with her family and bringing them to every event we have and helping out the best she can with all the planning, she is in charge of our website. She edits our journal, the Runestone Journal for us, our edition of it. She has a special ladies group that is called Daughters of Frigg, and that is for all AFA, all Odenshof ladies, everybody in our district who's a lady in our district are welcome to be part of it. It's a MeWe group. I need to actually put in a plug before we go on because we need to keep doing that. Please get on MeWe if you are not. It's the social media platform that we all use. We kind of live on there as leadership, but it is really important because it will connect you to all far corners of the country, of the world. And we have people who are in very isolated places, and it is their way of connecting and knowing people, being friends. But going back to that, having her with Daughters of Frigg, we're doing ladies events there at the Hof this weekend, of course, Charming of the Plow. We actually call it a ladies' tea, and we have teacups, and we just kind of dress it up like our grandmothers or great aunts would have done it. It is wonderful for us to come together. And there's just something so very sweet and such integrity to everything that Olivia does. And she does it with poise. She's just delicate, like a little teacup in a way, but she's strong and she has tremendous amount of knowledge to share with us. So she's really brought a lot to our district, and I very much appreciate all of her ideas. I mean, we're out there trying things, and she comes up with good ideas for us. They don't all work because it's just the nature of life, but she is always trying. So kudos to her for all she does.
Yeah. And Sierra too. I mean, Sierra has also been a staple over at Odenshof and a big help over there in that district and one of the frith weavers there in your district. Can you tell us a little bit about Sierra?
Yes, Sierra took on quite early the job of being a Hof historian. And doing that, she's keeping track of everything that's been happening since she arrived, but also she's gone back to the very origins of us purchasing Odenshof, which was 2015. But she's even dug deeper than that. She's has people in the community who have sent her black and white pictures of way back when, and she collects the stories of when people were doing karate classes there and doing dances there. It was very well known for all the dances for all the teens for a long time. And she's collecting a lot of that. I know she works with other historians of the other Hoffs as well. She does a lot of our meals. She's out there shopping. She's hosting things when she can, but she has two little kids. And in fact, one is only a couple of weeks old now, little Erica, who is already smiling. And I can see why, because, her mom is doing a lot and is accomplishing a lot in her job as a folk builder. So I really appreciate the time that she can put in folk building. But right now, she's got two little ones who are needing her attention, but she's still there, always in touch with me, and I appreciate that. And she does everything she can to help and make our Odenshof district, and especially Odenshof, a wonderful place to attend and to be a part of.
I know you do also have Angelina over there in your district speak, just to round out that trifecta of beauty
Yes.
and piety and awesomeness and frith weaving. You've got those three ladies that are all over the place talking to people. So talk to us about Angelina.
Angelina Stone came to us with her husband, who actually at this point is living in Arkansas, and she's at home in California. So, but she recently had a baby. She had a baby at the very end of December. This is her third little boy, ages 3, 2, and now this, or even 1.5. And then this little one, little Charlie. And we were able to do his baby naming, which was wonderful. My husband Stephen and I did the baby naming and pulled the runes and did all that kind of stuff. And we've done the other 3 children have all been her 3 little boys have all had their baby naming at Odenshof. What does she do? She is out there participating in just a lot of things. She's been on calls. She's former military, and she was on a really wonderful call with Brandy and another lady where we did at Visa and Harrier, the role of women in the military. She and her husband have done a lot. They always come and camp and set up things for the kids and are just very active in the background. She loves taking around the welcome horn of mead to people. When she was very pregnant with this little one, the new one, and she's there and she's carrying the horn out front and offering in the most genteel way a horn of welcome to people. That is kind of my image of her. She is just a very solid, loving, caring lady. And she, of course, is now taking time off too, because she's had this little one just in December. So we have babies all over the place at Odenshof right now. And from our folk builders, which is great. And Olivia too has her 3 as well. So, and we also have 2 older girls in the group. Anyway, wonderful families. And I love all these ladies who work with me. It's a very feminine feeling to it all. And it's unique because it never used to be that way. You may know that Odenshof always had kind of a very male dominant kind of a strutting kind of an ambiance to it. And that has gone by the wayside. It is very family oriented. The men come knowing that they are there to support the families and the children and the ladies who are there. And there's no such thing as heavy drinking or doing anything like that. No swearing. It's just a really perfect environment to raise families right now. And Brandy, who was there at Midsummer, kind of set some wonderful things in motion for us. So it really did put that feminine perspective. It doesn't mean that guys aren't being guys, because they definitely are. In fact, they come together for work weekends and they get to really spend their time, being bad, using whatever kind of language they want to use when they're together. But they do it, again, with much caring and commitment to each other and helping Odenshof grow and prosper and become more beautiful, more functional, because it needed a lot of work. So the men are really very, there's nothing feminine about a single one of them, but they are very in tune with the feminine that we have at Odenshof. And so it's this perfect balance now. I call it, in fact, even though I expect we're probably going to have well over 100 people at Midsummer this year, because it's our 30th anniversary in the Austria Folk Assembly, I'm calling it a retreat. And it seems kind of a funny word, but to me, that's what we achieved last year when Brandy came out. And we had a most mellow, wonderful, enlightening kind of a 3-4 days together. And there's no reason we can't do it again. I mean, just have it be perfect, in tune with each other, something where everybody grows in knowledge and awareness, but to each other. And that's really what we're going to be able to achieve. So different from the old events we used to have. If you used to come to our big events, 150 people, there were some rough kind of people around that, they've all left. It's just because now it's the nature of friends inviting friends. It's not that way anymore. It's really, really, it feels like family. We come together, and this is AFA family. I tell that to people, and that's what it feels like now. And it's a very, very strong place of everybody unified for the same things. Anyway, so that's what I have to say about Odenshof.
That's one of the gifts of our women, is we have a way of bringing people together, and that's part of that whole frith weaving process, right? That's part of what we do as women, is we can tie ourselves to each other. We can tie our men folk to the other men folk, and bind our families and bind us together as a folk in a church. And we've noticed a lot more leaning towards the frith weaving as we've gained more and more women in leadership. Baldershof has an outstanding core of frith weavers at Baldershof. Ashley McStalker is by far one of the bubbliest and most beautiful personalities that you'll come across. Ashley has a way of running into someone at a store while she's shopping for our school supplies, and spending the money that we got for the donation for the school supply drive that we do every year. And she somehow struck up a conversation with someone, and the next thing you know, we've got like over 20 free backpacks. That's Ashley's gift. She has the ability to build instant relationships with people, and get to know them in a really feminine and really loving way. She can really relate to other people, and she has an outstanding way of representing our church, not just to members, but also to the community. So she's helped build a lot of trust and a lot of faith in the communities around, with those that donate food for us, for those that donate to our school supply, our toy drive. That is all Ashley McStalker, and the wonderful helpers that she has in the Proudfoot family with Brock and Corey. Brock and Corey are amazing volunteers, and they may not be leadership, but they are very much the heart and part of the heart and soul of that team that makes that food drive and the school drives and everything successful. Also, Jessie Schaefer. We were talking earlier about how to get children into Asatru. She's figured that out. I mean, her children are absolutely amazing. She's got this rambunctious little crowd of children that are they're ingrained in the family. It's like they have always been there. And she also has a way, we call her the Hoff mom, because she just collects children. Children are just attracted to her. And she's definitely the Hoff mom. She's always the one with the Band-Aids and the snacks and prepared for anything. We always tease her that she's like a Lady MacGyver, because, she can hold a full conversation while grilling burgers, holding a toddler, and then we need to cut down a tree and she's got a chainsaw in the back. She's got everything that you would ever need, And we've also got Lydia Phelps that does a lot of stuff for us as well, especially AFA wide with the websites and Victory Never Sleeps and all of these amazing projects that we can now do with her help. Now that we have her expertise, we've got her skill, we've got her motivation and her sight for what looks good and what appeals to people. You know, what is it that the people want to see from us? A lot of the changes that we've made to websites in VNS is all, you know, things that she had ideas about and worked with Nick on. She's absolutely amazing. And her husband, now he's not one of the ladies, but, you know, since I mentioned Lydia, I'll mention her husband as well, Zach. Zach has been a huge help with, you know, our security team and our, if you have a question on anything technical, Zach can answer it really, really quick. He's also actively folk building, reaching out to the folk and stuff. But other than just their folk building duties, the Phelps have been just a huge help with all of the back end stuff and the technical things and getting us out there to our folks and help bring people home. So we've got those people as well. And I did receive a message from Gythia Plord, and she wants to do a special shout out to Catie Joyner. Catie Joyner and her party planning skills and her frith weaving and her cooking and all of the things that she does, and she does with a smile on her face, and she does with a lot of joy. Catie is absolutely amazing. We love Catie for all that she's done to New York, for Nordshof, the way that she supports the folk down, the way that she supports the Hof down there. She's an absolute gem, and we adore her for that. And she also wants to say a big shout out to Tracy Adler, the Hof historian. So she did very much what Sierra did with Odenshof, where she's basically traced the very beginnings of Nordshof from day one. And she's got all the pictures and the videos and the stories and all of these things. And she was, you know, she's so passionate about it and she's so dedicated to it. You know, she makes it a point to make sure that the legacy of Nordshof will live forever. So Tracy does an outstanding job with that, and we appreciate everything that she has done. So thank you, Tracy, and also thank you, Catie, and that's from your Gythia Plord. All right, we do have another question. This one is from Go the Trent East. What made each of you want to become AFA leadership? Gythia McNallen, what made you want to be leadership? You?
Oh my goodness.
Why would you want to be leadership for the AFA?
I think I was there on day one.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a passion for it. I like Steve, when Steve, my husband, for those of you who don't know, Stephen McNallen, when he first came across the gods, he did not want to keep it for himself. It was all about let's build a community, a world of Asatru. I mean, he has no limits to his visions. And I did kind of the same thing when I kind of came on the scene with him. I wanted to build the folk, and we were always talking about folk, and so we needed a name when we came back with the new whatever it was going to be, and it had been the Asatru Free Assembly. I said, let's call it folk, the Asatru Folk Assembly. So, you know, I gave it the name. We last two weeks ago, we happened to drive the road where I was. I remember exactly where I was and what the view was when I said that. And so I reminded Steve on that drive 2 weeks ago, and he didn't even know that story. I said, this is where it happened. This is where we got our name. But yeah, I have always been, you know, I never really took on a motherly role, but I was the person who made sure that things happened. We did our events. They started out really small, you know, it was in a backyard kind of thing, like people still do, but that's eventually it grew from that. I put out the newsletters, I did membership, I did all those things. And so you talk about a role of leadership, I did that, but I didn't take on a role of a Gythia for a long time because I never felt it was going to be my path. I was very much in the day-to-day while I was working full-time as well, but making sure that the AFA was growing and functioning best I could. And of course, there were a lot of things I couldn't do. I wasn't involved in the folk building or the Go There program or anything like that during those years, but I kept very, very busy and put on some wonderful events. That was what I loved, was events, and I'd always bring in bands for music, and they were really good from the get-go. We did some fantastic events. But what is different now is that we are all folk and we are all connected. We come together and we look in each other's eyes and we know exactly that we're all there for the same reason. Whereas in the old days, we'd have an odd assortment of people who would come, because it did have more of a pagan overlap. We don't use that word. We don't even use the word heathen for ourselves, but it definitely had that, because again, we had friends who were leaders in other groups and they kind of brought in oddball people. So it was eclectic in the early days. Some nice events, but they were much more eclectic. Now it's folk. It's folk coming together as family. So that is, I've been doing it for a long time, and I don't see that ending anytime soon. I certainly don't want it to. And my role is here to be with my people, to help my people connect better with the gods and their ancestors and with each other, and build their own sense of self and their own personal evolution to get where they need to get. So that's been my role.
What about you, Gythia?
So when I was 12, I decided I wasn't Christian anymore. I was going to be pagan. And way back when I was 12, in the olden days, GeoCities was basically where you went to find any information about being anything pagan or whatever. And for a very long time, I mean, I was 12, I couldn't exactly go out and meet random strangers and practice, paganism with them. So I was by myself for a very long time. None of my friends were really doing what I was doing. I wasn't telling my mom about it because she was, she's Catholic. She's not going to be super happy to hear I'm doing, whatever satanic things she thinks I was doing at the time. And I'm grateful that she's very supportive. And she was here for dinner with us earlier tonight, and she just quietly says her prayers while we do our meal blessing, and it's all good. But I was by myself for a very long time, and it's always hard to be by yourself. It's always hard to be alone. And when I was old enough to go out and meet with other people who were believing the things I was believing, I was finding the weirdos, because that's what exists outside of the AFA and outside of what we do. Maybe not across the board, but a lot of them are very strange. I mean, like, let's do birthing canal rituals where you like climb through like a weird tube of cloth and pretend like you're being rebirthed as new people. And I wasn't there for that one, but I've heard stories from people I used to be friends with about doing birthing rituals and stuff. And I've always been very spiritual. I've always been very connected to the gods and to the Vitir, at least for myself. And I was always very lonely. And when I finally found a community of people who believed the things I believe, it was like the biggest sigh of relief. And the idea of being able to make sure that there are people in the world who don't have to feel what I felt for so long, because there's going to be somebody there who can help connect them. That was always a really big motivation of mine, to be able to serve the folk, to grow the folk, to make sure that there are little girls out there who grow up and find a community sooner than I ever did. And a lot of people will hear, almost all of the women who have been around in the pagan circles and in Asatru for long enough say, there were not a lot of women in Asatru back when I first started. I mentioned earlier, I've been doing this for like 18 plus years now. Started as Theodish, moved up to Asatru with AFA. It's only been those two things, but there were not a lot of women. And so the idea of being a woman who could help other women find their way home was really important to me.
Yes.
The folk building aspect, I didn't realize it was folk building at the time. To me, it was just serving my folk, serving people, serving the other young women, so that they had some place that they could turn around and go to. That was always one of my prime motivations. And also serving the gods. I want to build bright fame for myself, which I think all of our folk should want to do in whatever capacity they can. There's a little bit of ego there, because I want the gods to know who I am, and I want to be remembered one day when I die. And as a Gythia for the AFA, I can almost guarantee that at least for some time after I pass away, there are people who will remember me and raise the horn to me. And that's important to all of us. It should be, to be remembered. And then I had children. And once you have children, especially as women, you know that the world changes and your perspective on everything changes. So what started off as wanting to create a home for other young women and to honor the gods and to be remembered turned into wanting to create a place for the children so that there's a future here. And I don't think I'm capable of doing that by myself, obviously, but having children has become my number one motivation in a lot of ways, because if I can do my very best and build the Asatru Folk Assembly now for my children, it'll be easier for them and they'll have a place to bring their own children home to one day. And what is more worthy than that? So
Thank you, ma'am. And since it was Go the East that asked the question, let's go ahead and slap his mugshot up on the screen real quick. So Go the East is when I talk about the Gothi, I need you to understand he's one of my favorite people and a very good friend, but I love to tease him because it's fun. Go the East is he was in the Godar program with me. He was in class with me. We're both part of the class of 21. And he is definitely someone that you rely on in hard times, because no matter what you're going through, he's going to have a comment that will make you laugh and forget what it is that you're mad about or sad about. He's an outstanding Gothi. He has got an incredible way of talking to people. He's got a wonderful spiritual practice that can motivate you during bloats. He's just an overall just an outstanding human being. So if you have not had a chance to talk to Go the East over in your top district, please do. Please reach out to him, harass him, and let him know that Witan Callahan sent him, and remind him that wonderful men and strong and outstanding men never skip leg day. The best men do leg day. So always remember that. Go the East. Thank you. We do also have a donation from Michael Cosgrove. Hail the women of the AFA. The mead couldn't be properly blessed without you all, nor could the next generation be raised into the folk. Thank you so much, Michael, for your donation. We appreciate you very much. Now, since I gave Go the East a shout out, I'm going to give his beautiful wife a shout out. And now she's not necessarily she's not an official member of leadership or anything like that, but Madison is she creates some outstanding and beautiful artwork. And a lot of the artwork that we use for the Asatru Folk Assembly comes from her and from her gifts and her talent. So I just want to take a minute to give her a really quick shout out. You may not be leadership, Madison, but you are appreciated for all the things that you do and all the contributions that you make and the time that you give to us. And while I'm shouting out beautiful wives, I do want to go ahead and get Mrs. Flavel up on the screen for us, because we're going to talk about the Lady of Victory here for a minute, and she's going to shoot us all later. That's okay. So Mandy has been one of the driving forces in the modern AFA. She is always there for support. She is always there to help out the ladies. She's very active in the ladies group. She has tirelessly dedicated to the Baby Blanket Project. And she is a huge motivator for a lot of our women leadership. She is someone that always has a kind word when needed, and she always has a swift kick if you need that too. She'll give you both if you need both. Whatever it is, Mandy seems to know what it absolutely is that you need at that time, and she has an uncanny ability to give that to you, to give it what it is that you need to get through. So we want to send out a huge thank you to the leaders of the the leader of the ladies, and that's going to be Mandy Flavel, for all that she has done, for all that she continues to do, for all of her sacrifices that she makes for the folk, for the gods, and for the AFA. So thank you, Mrs. Flavel. We love you and we appreciate you. All right. We do have a couple more questions. This one's going to be for you, Catie. And this one is going to be from your son. So I would like you to answer it. And the question is how many bears can you take out in one punch?
In my fantasies, I can go out and kill a bear one day. I'm going to do it just because. In reality, 0. I'm pretty sure the bear would knock me out before I ever had the chance to knock it out. My son, Owen, I love you very much. He's very, very into all of the violent boy things that it is possible for a boy to be into. So I shouldn't be surprised that that's his question. Owen, I could knock them all out. I'm always going to win. All of them.
No. I don't know. The only bears that I can knock out are those cinnamon ones, about this big. You guys, the Witan is a sucker for some cinnamon gummy bears. I tell you what.
Oh, gummy bears. I thought you meant the Teddy Grahams.
Oh, no. The gummy bears, because, you can line them up on your desk, and just take them all out at the same time.
Hi.
Those are the only bears that I can fight are going to be those cinnamon gummy bears. All right, we've got a question from Gythia Stam. What is the most rewarding part of being in leadership? What is the most challenging? Gythia McNallen, would you like to take that question?
Oh my goodness, most rewarding. Sensing that we are making a difference in people's lives. So many people are out seeking, looking for something. Maybe they're not even seeking it, but we know that finding the AFA would be a huge benefit in many people's lives, being able to connect with something other than this moment in time, and to have the positive attitude that we can bring to somebody. And we come together and we stay so positive when we're at all of our events, because there's such a wonderful sense of peace and well-being that we get when we're together. It is really important to facilitate that when we're together. And so that is one of the things I always seek to do. And if I come home and feel that I've been fulfilled by an event because it has gone well, I know that I'm probably not the only one who feels that way. The other hand, I really am troubled by how hard it is for us to reach, again, the people who should be with us, but they don't know about us. And, occasionally people will say, where have you been my whole life? I needed you. But we have been, in fact, I guess the word is shadow banned. It's so hard for us to share who we are, what we believe, and the power that we have within our church to connect with divine powers and the things that just carry us forward and will carry us into the next life. Again, I have no fear about what comes afterwards, because I'm very confident that we do continue. We go through the veil. Family is there, and we've got places to go. But that is the biggest challenge. And even today, trying to come up with a way of finding traditional women who don't think there are any men out there. We've got them. We've got the guys, believe me. But how do we find those women? And that was a part of a phone call I had with Olivia today, because we talked about that at our last ladies' tea. How do we find the women to draw them here, because they're looking for real men? And so anyway, those are my couple of things that I would say.
Thank you, ma'am. Gythia Erickson, we have a question for you, ma'am. Do you see your role in leadership as being different than that of your male counterparts? If so, how?
Okay. First, Gythia McNallen, your cat is huge.
Oh, yes, she is. She's huge. I had to get a medium size. We want to put her on a harness so we can take her for walks. I had to get a medium sized dog one for her. She's so big. She's huge. Her name's Jersey.
Cute, but that's a big cat.
She's 20 some odd pounds.
Sorry, I had to say something.
She's my family. You can do that.
I got 3 very large dogs, so I get it. So yes, I believe that our role as women is definitely, it's like a Venn diagram. There's the men, there's the women, and there's the spot in the middle where it intersects, and we have very similar jobs. We do a lot of the same stuff. We bloat to the gods. We facilitate that connection for the gift cycle between the gods and the folk, and the folk and the gods. We do a lot of the counseling stuff that men do. There's a lot of what we do is very similar, but then there's the things that are unique to the women and unique to the men. And I really do believe that just has to do with a woman's role in society in general. Women are the peacekeepers, the frith weavers. We are inherently better at creating certain types of spaces. When men are all together in a room, it was like what Gythia McNallen said earlier about the work days at Odenshoff. That's when the men get together and they do the more rough stuff, the cussing and the spitting and the getting stuff done and being all macho. But when the women are there, suddenly it's a different environment, and that's because that's what women do. We have an energy that changes things. I mean, if you look at what frith weaving is from the metaphysical point of view, it literally is changing the energy of a room, changing the energy around people, taking it from a kind of frictive, chaotic sort of energy to a peaceful or at least controlled energy that is easier to digest. We're the Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. I know what I'm trying to say. I don't know if I have the words to say it properly, but I do believe that the roles between men and women as Gythia and Gythia are different, but not entirely. There's just things that the men do that the women can't do, and things that the women can do that the men can't.
Right. And we talk about that, you know, amongst each other, amongst the Gothar, amongst leadership and amongst membership is, it's not necessarily so much about what can a woman do that a man can't, or what can a man do that a woman can't. It's more important of what talents do we have and what talents do they have, and how can we come together for the best possible future for our folk, you know? So there are innate feminine qualities and there are innate male qualities, but coming together and taking both sides of that for a future goal and for a path is going to be the most important thing. The role of leadership is going to be the same, whether you're male and female, but the way you approach it is going to be very much different, right? Women are much more receptive. We're much better communicators a lot of the time. And the men do. The men strive and the men push forward so fast and so hard, you know? So there's really that quality of taking the best of that femininity and the best of that masculinity, and together as leadership, help our folk get to, you know, get to the Hoffs, get to a bigger and brighter future, connect with our gods, build beautiful things. It's really what we're trying to do on both sides, the male and the female leadership side. That makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you. I couldn't come up with those words.
So I do want to take a second to shout out a couple people really quick, because I believe these two people for me, and then we're going to go back to a couple other districts, but there are two people that I want to mention that when you think of dedication, hard work, sacrifice, there are very few people who have given more of that than the two I'm about to mention. And the first one is going to be our senior folk builder, Jason Gallagher. So our senior folk builder, Jason Gallagher, took the state of Minnesota and turned it into one of the most membership heavy states. It is not the most, I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is he built from just him in the state of Minnesota to spreading Asatru and bringing his folk home to the point that we now have the third half of the Asatru Folk Assembly in his home state. Jason Gallagher did that. Jason Gallagher's hospitality did that. Jason Gallagher's dedication did that. The sacrifice of his time, his money, his body, all of those things. Baldershoff is here because of Jason Gallagher. So there are very few people who have sacrificed as much as he has. And the second person that I want to bring up is going to be Sarah Alt. There are very few people in the AFA who donate as much time and work as Sarah. Sarah is involved in just about everything that the AFA has to offer, whether it is book studies, whether it is the Runestone, whether it is the Asatru Academy, the Ladies Mysteries podcast that she is running with that. She works tirelessly for the folk, and a lot of that time is spent on her sisters in the AFA. It is spent talking to women, building Frith, making sure that there are book studies and podcasts and meetings and things that are centered around the feminine aspect, so that all of our women know that you do have a place here. And this is where it's at. Let us show you. So I would like to definitely give a shout out to those two. They work so hard and appreciate everything that they have done. Absolutely. Dedicate more time than anybody else that I know of. So I definitely want to thank them for that. All right. There is a question specifically for Gythia McNallen. And it is, I was wondering how you felt about the AFA erecting statues in honor of you and our founder, Stephen.
Well, it came as a total surprise to both of us. I mean, it was enough to know that there was a video that was made, because Matt made sure. I mean, everybody kind of got the word, there's something big happening. You've got to be on VNS tonight. I know that Brandy told me that. Sure enough, about 20 minutes before it started, Matt sent a message to me saying, you got to look at this. And there was the link. And so I started watching it, and I was in it maybe about 3 or 4 minutes. And I called my husband over, and the two of us watched. And you know, I have to say, the picture that was chosen is one of my all-time favorites. It was from a very special day involved with the Kennewick Man case, a day that we were there as a part of a tribe. You know, we were saying we were a tribal group too, and we're acknowledged as that. It was just amazing. And so there we're hearing all these wonderful things that Matt is saying about us. And we're just getting so moved by it all. And then all of a sudden we see the statues. And we were in tears. We had no idea that would ever happen. And it still has not really sunk in. But, you know, it's been said, how many people ever see a statue of themselves? You know, it happens, you know, post-mortem. After they die, you get a statue. And I'm glad that other people who are as worthy and deserving as our contributions will also be getting statues throughout the country and throughout the world. It was truly incredible. And I said right afterwards, I guess we're going to end up there, you know, awfully hard to not be at Sigerheim. I'm not sure what's going to happen in our old age, you know, in the next 30 years. Yeah, right. But we've always been cared for so generously by the AFA. Matt himself takes good care of us. People always wonder, you know, Matt took over, blah, 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 blah. No, Matt stepped in to help. Matt did what we couldn't do. We were at the point where we had nothing more to give to the AFA. You had to reach a kind of a stasis. Matt came in, chose the right people, has grown it even better with better people who really understand the mission. And it is wonderful to think that we contributed to the point we are now. You know, this is far more. You know, ask me what was my vision in the early days. Why I want to have 15 people to my home. That was a start. I never thought we'd have this. Steve, on the other hand, probably did imagine he still wants to galactic colonization. He'll tell you that. He's not done yet. But very moved and very just totally love my folk. And I thank everybody who wasn't, excuse me, involved in making this happen. I know a lot of people kept the secret for a long time and it worked. You totally honored us in a remarkable way. I have nothing more to say. I just love you all, love all the leaders who made it happen. And I'm glad that we had the means to do that. You know, who else, what other church does that? I don't know, but we've done it and we're going to do it again.
We appreciate all the things that you and Stephen have done to make this all possible, Sheila. So we love you both.
Thank you.
We have a question from Carl. What is the overall health of the folk? Well, I'm going to say that the overall health of the folk is pretty good, other than a few sniffles, other than a few sore muscles from too many leg days. I'm going to say it's pretty good. And the reason I'm going to say it's pretty good is this. I don't want to focus on the negativity. I don't want to focus on those things that are going on around us when we can be focusing on something else that is much more beautiful. I don't want my folk to focus on all the things that are going wrong in the world and with themselves to the point where we lose sight of the bright, shining folk flame right ahead of us. The health of the folk is good because I want the health of the folk to be good. And I say this because I want you to always to focus on the positive things and the things that we can change. We don't always want to be worried about what could happen or what might happen. We need to worry about what it is that we can influence, what we can change, what we can build. That's what I want us to focus on. And I also want to make sure that you all take your vitamins and drink your vitamin C because it is flu season and there's been some nasty colds going around. So please make sure you take your vitamins and drink your orange juice. So as far as I'm concerned, the health of the folk is good because we're strong, and the health of the folk in general is good because we are moving forward. And for those who have not caught up with the healthy folk soul, this is the place for you to do that. If you are feeling that soul sickness, reach out to any of the Gythias on this call. Reach out to any of the leadership that we have already mentioned or any of the leadership that we will be mentioning throughout the podcast tonight, and help us help you get over that. We can help you build a bright and beautiful future for you and your family and leave behind those things that you cannot change and those things that do not need to be dwelled on. That's my answer for that. All right. Speaking of awesome people in leadership, there's a couple people that I want to bring some attention to. And those people are folk builder and Hoff steward, Mike Joyner. So Mike Joyner, I'm not sure if he's going to be listening to this or not because he's probably super busy preparing for Charming of the Plow, which I'm going to plug again, is this weekend in Florida. Please get your tickets at www.runestone.org. It's not too late. Contact Mike. Contact Go the East or any of the leadership in Njordhoff district if you plan to attend. So Mike is a ball of sunshine, and everybody kind of laughs when I say this, but it's true. I have never seen the man without a smile on his face. I'm sure he can get upset, and I'm sure he can get angry, and I'm sure he's probably sad from time to time, but I've never seen it because he's a continual ray of sunshine and happiness and positivity. I had the pleasure of meeting both him and his beautiful wife not that long ago, and they are just amazing people. They will do anything for their folk and for their church, and they work tirelessly to make Njordhoff a beautiful temple to Njord. So thank you, Folk Builder Joyner, for all that you do for our folk. And I also want to thank folk builder Justin Day in Texas. So Justin in Texas is a ball of confidence and positivity and a go-getter, and he runs tirelessly to make sure that there are things for his folk to go to. There are ways for them to celebrate and honor their gods. He's always active. There is always pictures of him with his kindred flag and an AFA flag. That man is everywhere doing everything. So if you are in that area and you want to get involved, get a hold of folk builder Justin Day, because I'm sure he's probably got something going on, and knowing him, he's probably got a pretty good plan of when he's going to have things going on in the future. So thank you, Justin, for everything that you're doing in Texas. And we do have a couple donations that we want to give a shout out to. Cole Van Gilder, hey ladies, sending love. Hail all our women, hail the Gythias, hail the AFA. Thank you, my dear, I appreciate that. And from the Phelps family, hail the heart of the folk. Hail bright and beautiful future. Thank you to the Phelps family who do so much and donate so much to us each and every week. We appreciate you too. All right. I think we had a couple other questions on here really quick. Oh, this one I'm going to give to Gythia Erickson. What are your thoughts on patrons and matrons, and is it quote unquote new age? And do any of you have a patron or matron or just a deity that you feel closest to? Gythia Erickson, what do you got on that, man?
I have very mixed feelings, and this is a personal thing. I'm not saying it's the view of the AFA. On the one hand, I can't help but the idea of having your patron god is sort of Wiccan-y. On the other hand, I also recognize that most of us, if not currently, then at some point have recognized that we've had a patron deity that we chose. And I do think that's the point, right? You choose the God you feel close to, and you dedicate a part of yourself to that God. I started off very young, dedicated to Freya, because I admired all that she stood for, the magic, the death, the war, all of that. Because she was a strong, independent female, and at 19 years old, as a person who was at some point, I'm still very shy, but at that time in my life, it was almost crippling shyness. Like, I wouldn't walk into a grocery store and ask somebody for help finding something, because that meant I had to talk to a stranger. So Freya to me was the epitome of that strong, independent female. And I don't mean independent and didn't need men. I meant independent, like, could walk into a grocery store and ask for help, you know. At one point, Odin was the god I felt closest to, up until I had children. Now I find that I have an affinity for Frigga. As a mother, I've felt like I've had an affinity to Freyr at some point. I think a lot of, for me personally, the recognizing an affinity with a god tends to go with the cycles of our lives. As a young independent, or as a young unattached woman, Freya, I was drawn to her. There's a lot of reasons why that would make sense. As a slightly more mature woman on a journey of, I had not just found Asatru, but I was relatively new to Asatru, and I was seeking wisdom and a desire to know more about magic, and Odin seemed to make a lot of sense for that to me, because he was the god of wisdom, he's the god of poetry, he's the god of a lot of things, you know, he's an all-father. But he made sense to me, and I was drawn to him. And again, as a mother, obviously, Frigga, you feel drawn to Frigga. I think most people who have children are drawn to Frigga. When my children are sick, suddenly I focus on air, and I become connected to her. And those connections never really go away, I never lose an affinity for the gods that I have chosen to pay particular homage to. All that happens is that my relationship to them personally grows. So I don't personally recognize patron deities because I think as Asatru are, all of our gods, all of the Aesir are important, and we should recognize all of them. And so what I would say is, absolutely, you can dedicate yourself to a particular god or goddess at any point in your life, but don't shut yourself off from, or don't limit yourself to just one of our deities. Allow yourself to feel that connection to all of them as the cycles of your life bring you closer to a particular god, because all of them are important. All of them, we should do our best every day to form those relationships with all of our gods, because they are a part of our history. They're a part of our lives and our spirituality and what we do. And it's easy to choose one of the major gods that we all know because they're in all the stories and in the Marvel comic books and whatever. But don't forget about Gythia or Scotty or, any of our other gods and goddesses that get talked about as often. We should remember them all. We should always strive to form those connections. So, sorry, there's a very long way of me saying I'm not personally in favor of the concept of patron deities. I am in favor of dedicating yourself to a god or goddess in a limited capacity, so that you should always be growing and learning and connecting. Again, just, it comes in waves. You're never going to be connected to every goddess or god all the time. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. We've got a question from folk builder Stian Penner. Witan Callahan, could you tell us a little bit about what it takes to be part of AFA leadership and how one can start an apprenticeship folk building in their area? Absolutely, I can. So the first question of what it takes to be part of AFA leadership. It takes time and dedication. So one thing I always like to tell my leadership, and any leadership that I talk to in the AFA, is that your role as a folk builder for the Asatru Folk Assembly is a form of devotion. You are dedicating your time, your energy, you are sacrificing, time away from work, time away from your family, sometimes money to get where you're going. All of these things that you could be doing. You could be on a kayak somewhere, you could be playing golf, you could be playing tennis, you could be on your Harley going 80 miles an hour down a road, right? You could be doing all of those things. But instead, you're calling a member in Missouri who needs someone to talk to. You are coordinating with a Gythia or a Gythia to plan an event to honor one of your gods at one of our holidays. You are holding a feast and cooking a dinner for 12 people coming to your house in remembrance for one of our heroes. You're calling people, checking in on them to see how they are. There's a lot of other things you could be doing, but these are the things you should be doing. Building that relationship with your folk, honoring your gods, and building a bright future for your church. Those are all forms of devotion. So the first thing that you need to have is that relationship with the gods. Be willing to sacrifice and work for them. That's the first thing. You need to then be willing to sacrifice and work for your folk and for your church. That's the second thing. And then I need you to find all the time in your day to talk to your wife or your husband, help the kids with the homework, still go to work. Then I need you to add the time for the gods and for the folk and for the church into your day. Those are the first steps that you need to take. Find that devotion, then find a way to make it happen. If that is something that you would like to do, contact our folk builder coordinator, Gythia Nathan Erlinson, any of the Gothar in your district, Any of the Witan would be willing to talk to you about that. The Alshira Gothi himself, or even one of the other folk builders that we've mentioned, or the apprentice folk builders. Find out what their day is like. Find out what the job is like. Find out why they do it. Why do they sacrifice? Why do they work? What do they love about this? What don't they love about this? Ask them that question too. But for me, this is a form of devotion to my gods. Being a member of, and it's not just being a Gythia. I am a priestess of the Aesir, yes. But a lot of what I do is devotional to my gods because it's a lot of time spent and it's a lot of work. But this is a form of devotion for me. So that would be the first thing. And then if you are interested in being an apprentice in your area, even if you're not quite willing to take that leap yet, try to get some folk together. If you want to get in contact with the folk in your area and just hold a dinner for a day of remembrance, or maybe see if you can get one of the Gothis or Gythias to come to your house for an event and do a bloat. We're willing to go do that as long as it's not a 15-hour drive or something crazy like that. Coordinate with them. We would love to come to your house and do bloat for you. We would love to. This is something that we've been working on as well. If you are not a member of leadership, but you are willing to hold a potluck at your home and network and coordinate and meet other members in your area, let us know. There are several Gothis and Gythias who would love to show up via Teams or Zoom or any other way that we can get you there and talk to you. Maybe hold a book study for you. Maybe hold a rune study for you. Maybe hold a class on anything that you would like. We would love to do that for you. So if you are willing to get your folk together, reach out to your local leadership and let them know. You don't have to be a member of leadership just to feed your folk and build frith with your folk and get them together, build community. I don't care what anybody says, whether it's in a book, whether it's on YouTube, if it's in a podcast, if they're an expert on whatever. Asatru was not meant to be a solitary thing. It is not meant to be a religion of one. Asatru is built on community. That is a huge, huge part of what we do. You're not meant to be a solitary practitioner. If you are isolated, unisolate. If you are all alone and the only person within 400 miles of you, call us. Come to a national event. Charming of the Plow this weekend, New York's Hoff, www.runestone.org. Come to a national event. Find out what's going on around you. Carpool with somebody to go to the Hoffs. See if you can get people to come spend the weekend with you. Ask. Don't be afraid to ask. If you don't have a way to get to the Hoff and you're 4 hours away from Baldershof, call one of the members of leadership and we'll see what we can do to help get you there. Whether it's, do we need to bring something to you? Do we need to maybe have someone pick you up along the way? It's very easy to, this is going down a whole different rabbit hole. Sorry, Stan. It's very easy to say, oh, that's a lot of work. It's very easy to say, oh, I'll just go next month. The leadership is there to help pave the way to make that path easier. If you are willing to do that in a leadership or even as just folk supporting folk, let us know. We'll get you in touch with people around you, hold a dinner, have one of us come in and do a rune study with you. That'd be awesome. Wouldn't it be awesome to have Gythia, Shiela, McNallen give you a personal rundown on the history of the AFA for an hour or so while you guys are eating dinner? Wouldn't that be awesome? Wouldn't it be awesome to have Gothi Plord, on your TV screen talking to you about the runes with you and your 3 best buddies? Wouldn't that be cool? I think it would be. So if you're interested in that, get with the folk builders, get with the Godar, and get that worked out for you. Speaking of Go Deplored, let's throw him up on that screen real quick. All right, Go Deplored is one of our Godar down in your top district. Again, Charming of the Plow this weekend, go. You need to be there. All the cool kids are there except for us. That's why we're on BNS right now, because we didn't get to go. Go Deplored works really, really hard down in your top district. He's very knowledgeable in anything from the lore to the runes. Also very helpful in regards to if you just need somebody to talk to. He also holds a lore study that I believe is on Tuesdays, isn't it, guys? I do believe that lore study is on Tuesdays. Somebody will correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. Mondays, there's my producer telling me when it is. This is why we have you, Nick. He's the keeper of all the knowledge for me. So Mondays, he holds a lore study, and he does a lot of things down in your top district, and we very much appreciate him. And I think it would be very, very awesome if you got a potluck dinner together and we invited Go the Jason Plord to talk to you about the lore, or about the Day of Remembrance, or about the holiday, or about whatever it is that tickles your fancy. I'm sure he could talk about it. So contact Go the Plord if you want to go the in your living room, or at least on your TV. All right, Sheila, you've got some awesome men over there in your district. If we can talk about a couple of them. Can you tell me about folk builder Ryan Harlan and why he's outstanding?
Ryan Harlan, my goodness. He is a man who stepped out of a previous century. He is Saxon through and through. He knows the lore. He looks it. He dresses in his tweeds, but he does it with this firm way about him that is exuding truly who he is, and he sees himself as that. Harlan being Har, another name for Odin, but Harland coming from England, and he is just can do all kinds of crafts. He is very knowledgeable in the lore. He's a great historian. He moved from California over to Montana to take a very demanding job. He works for the U.S. Forest Service, and he rarely gets days off. So he's very busy over there. He and his wife bought a beautiful old home in a ghost town in Montana, and they have 3 little girls and are soon to have a little boy join them in a few months. And we're very happy for them. But he just is one of those people who is easy to talk to. He just comes in and gives a sense of reassurance to everybody. So he has really grown that part of Montana around Helena to be just amazing group of people. He has a kindred going, and you see all the pictures of them, and they look so compatible. They look like extended family all together. They get together and they have all these little things for the children to do, especially his own little ones. Very, very powerful man and very knowledgeable. I just wish he didn't live so far away, but he's been a great asset to the AFA all these years. Goes way back. And another person in Montana is Tyler Heinlein, who is doing his own adventures out there in South Central Montana with his wife and 2 little girls now. He has 20 acres there, and he's homesteading it. He's not off-grid because he does have good internet, but everything else, we went out to visit them in August to a Freyfaxi, and he had a lot of people come in from all over the Northwest to basically rough it on his land. And people came knowing that's what it would be. And it was fine because he just does everything with such confidence for being a young man and raising animals and is building a meadery. He just has these great dreams, and he's achieving them step by step by step, as well as dealing with negative 20 degrees, helping his wife birth a baby a couple months ago in like 20 minutes. I mean, there it was, just them and their other little girl, Briar. Just quite the amazing fellow. He does a lot of organizing in Odenshoff District. It helps me with things like our membership meetings. As I said, he's in the golfing program, so he's working towards being a Gothi. And the other thing he does is something called the Unity Calls, Sunday night, 6 p.m. Pacific time. He brings people together to discuss lore, to discuss personal development, everything from physical to mental, emotional, the whole thing, reading books, learning the lore, sacrificing, making personal sacrifices and goals, all those things he does in a really well documented way. So highly recommend, if you're anywhere in the Northwest, get in touch with Tyler Heinlein, Heinlein, at runestone.org. Good guy. His brother is a folk builder, Aaron Simbeck. He's new to our group, but he's up there hosting some things like snow camping. That's one of his moots he's doing. He's got a lot of enthusiasm. He hasn't been with us very long, but we hope he definitely grows into all the things that a folk builder can do. He's got a good attitude about it. We have Kyle Reeder, who's in Idaho Falls. He is a power lifter. I forget, he was lifting 777 pounds or something just last week. It was amazing. He also, along with that, he's a big-hearted man. He loves folk building. He's one of the strongest advocates for how it has changed his life and why he does it and gets so much out of it. So if you want to talk to somebody who is all about folk building, talk to Kyle Reeder. He has a wife and children who participate in doing bloats and gatherings at their home, and they open their home to everybody. And he's a very friendly person trying to build the folk best he can and do bloat and all those things. He's pretty good. We have Lou.
I remember talking to Kyle at Midsummer, and he's like, "Oh, I'd like to do that someday." I'm like, "How about today?"
And he did.
And he
First
did.
time he ever met anybody, and he signed right up, and he hasn't regretted it.
Proud of him for that.
Yeah, and then we have Lou. Lou is down in Arizona. He works really long hours being a truck driver out for one of the mines there. But when he's home, he is spot on trying to do all of his folk building duties. He's a bit like Sierra. Sierra is very social. She knows people all over the country. So does Lou. He'll end up talking, well, I talked to so-and-so, and it's somebody, 5 states away. But he also knows all the people in his own area, and he puts on really good events. He himself has a beautiful family there and in southern Arizona. He's also in the Gothar program. So he's up and coming Gothi in Odenshoff District. Again, very knowledgeable. He does these wonderful historic presentations and writings on things dealing with characters out of history or our heroes and that kind of thing. And he's known for doing that. And he's just a genuinely nice guy. I mean, he doesn't have a bad word for anybody. I've never seen him do it. He's just so gentle and easygoing. So I think I got everybody.
I think that's all of Odenshoff. Yes, ma'am.
I think so. Yeah, it's 8 of us. We could use more.
So
please take heed of that.
We could. So we could definitely use more folk builders over there in Odenshoff District. And if you're interested in that, please contact Shiela. And again, even if you don't necessarily want to be leadership, get a hold of Shiela or one of the folk builders anyway. Just say, hey, listen, is there anybody in my area that might want to come over for dinner, might want to go to a movie? We'll get you in touch with people if that's what you want. Absolutely. For sure. All right. Gythia Erickson, you've got some people that I want to talk about over in your district too. Can you talk to us about folk builder Jonathan Brock in Indiana, please?
The king of the corn.
The king of the corn.
It's really funny because John is both simultaneously a really quiet guy and a really not quiet guy. I don't know how to describe it better than that. Because, he'll walk into a room and he has this little swagger, and I'm pretty sure he does it on purpose, but he totally swaggers. And I've made fun of him to his face about it, because he walks in and he's a cool cat, you know. And he'll drop all his jokes. He's very witty. Loves talking about corn. He's from Indiana. I guess corn's a thing in Indiana. I don't know, but it was a thing for a long time, him talking about his corn. And he seems like kind of a goofball. Which is totally, I love that about John. I wouldn't change it for in a second. But if you really spend any time getting to know John at all, you learn very quickly that John is actually a very intelligent, very deep thinking sort of guy. He really knows a lot about what he's doing. He understands Asatru very well. And he's a really good guy. He's a good guy to have on the team. And I really appreciate the stuff he does, because he folk builds for the state of Indiana. I mean, he folk builds for all of the Asatru Folk Assembly. It's something I like to make a point of saying. Our folk builders are not folk builders for states. They're folk builders for the Asatru Folk Assembly. We cross lines all the time. There's no reason why our folk builders in Thorshof district shouldn't know the members in Odenshof district. And it's a big project and something we're working on evolving. But John is a very good folk builder, and he has to folk build in a state where people generally are very, don't talk to me unless I know who you are first. So I know that it can be a little tough with our members in Indiana. They know John, and John is their guy, and that's perfectly okay with them. They're happy that way. And John has really risen to the task. He also, while he does everything he does in Indiana, getting his guys together, making sure that they have some place to be and a place to go to honor the gods, he also is working really hard on folk building for Michigan. There's a whole entire state between him and Michigan, the state of Ohio. And John still does his best to folk build for them. I know that he hosts monthly calls with the members in Michigan. I know that he has also taken a lot of time to drive up into Michigan at various points to put together moots and stuff. It's a little bit harder to do because, again, he has to drive through the entire state of Ohio, or at least a good chunk of it. Ohio is a pretty big state, but he still does it. And we really appreciate that about him. He spends a lot more time actively driving from place to place to make sure that our folk have a connection than you might realize. So we love John. We love his humor, but we also love the fact that he is a deep thinker.
Yes, absolutely. So we've got a couple apprentice folk builders that we've got over in Europe and also across the Pacific. So let's start with our one in Australia. Shiela, would you like to let people know that there is now an apprentice in Australia?
Yes, indeed. This is Chris Robbie, and he just came on board a few days ago. Very excited to be with us. He had kind of hinted way back when he first joined that it might be something he'd be interested in. But, it's been quite a while since we've had somebody actually handle Australia, or what we call Oceania, because it is New Zealand as well. We do have, I think, we have a few members in New Zealand, but Chris is perfect for the job. He just comes across as, if you see his picture, you say, I want to meet that guy. I want to have a beer with him. He exudes that kind of a impression when you see him, and he's going to be fantastic. So if you are in Australia, if you're listening to this and you are not a member, you have somebody now to reach out to. And I'm sure he's going to be great at organizing. We tend to cluster in Australia up near Sydney, down by Melbourne, that kind of a thing. And he will help you coordinate and get some events going. And he's just what we've needed. I think he's the perfect guy for the job. So very exciting to see that. Yeah. Welcome, Chris Robbie.
Yes, ma'am. And Gythia Erickson, you've got some people over your direction too that are doing some very good work over there across the ocean. Can you tell me a little bit about apprentice Eric Lugnet in Sweden?
I absolutely can. Eric Lugnet is one of our rock stars in Thorshof district. He is tireless. The man is always I am a big fan of his. He really works really hard. I think for Eric, one of the things that really has helped him to succeed as a folk builder he's in Sweden, is the fact that him and his wife actually lived in Odenshof district, was it, for a little while? Or
they were in Colorado. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I
Back
didn't
when
remember
Jason
exactly.
Claude was
But
there.
they lived out here in the United States for several years, so they actually got to see what the AFA was like in person, the way we do things in person. And that's something that most, if not all of the rest of our folk builders and members out in Europe and across the world haven't had access to, because we can't really just travel out to Australia to hold moots and whenever we want. One day I hope that we can do that so that we can show them what it looks like how we do it. But Eric and his wife did live here, and so when they moved back to Sweden, they went with the knowledge of why what we're doing works, why what we're doing is good, because they got to see it firsthand where it was thriving. I know that he's got small children, and his wife just helped translate a book, The Children of, I'm going to draw a blank now because I'm trying to remember it, but she helped, thank you, Frostimo Mountain, which is for sale. You all should go out and support our wonderful folk building family from Sweden by purchasing that book if you have the opportunity. Eric works incredibly hard, and he has a very uphill battle for him because he lives out in the middle of nowhere in Sweden. The closest person to him is like 3.5 hours, 4 hours away from him. And in Sweden, where the snow is thick this time of year and everything like that, travel really isn't very easy, but he's still trying really hard. I know that they have, I think, weekly calls for the membership out in his area where they get together. My husband and I have popped in on a call once or twice, and they're well attended. And he's always contacting people. He's always reaching out. He works faster than a lot of the people out here who, I think the time difference helps because a lot of us are sleeping and he's awake getting stuff done, but he's a really good, really hardworking man, and we really, 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 really appreciate him. And as soon as we can get him to an event, I'm pretty sure he will no longer be an apprentice folk builder. But he has to be able to get out of Sweden for that. Or we have to get to Sweden. One of those will happen eventually. So.
Yes. Yeah. We have a question from Owen again, and I lost it. Where did it go? Catie, you're taking this one because it's your son. So mom has to answer this question. And Owen asks, Owen like to know if our Gythias have thoughts on the role of the Asanya at Ragnarok.
I feel like my son probably did ask that question, but I feel like my husband probably rephrased it. So I know I've always had this theory that the reason why Freya gets to choose the first half of the battle slain is because she is building an army to fight at Ragnarok, but they're like the last defense when Odin and the warriors of Valhalla have all been slain. Her army is there in the background waiting in case they're needed. Like the absolute final last line of defense against the destruction of the entire world. I don't know why that's just always been this theory I've had in the back of my head. That's why she gets to choose first. She's choosing the best of the best, because when all else fails, if all else fails, she and her men, her warriors, are going to be the absolute final line between the destruction of everything. I have no reason to believe that's true, other than it's just always been in my head that's how that happened. As far as the rest of our Asiniya, whatever the word was that my husband specifically typed, I'm not really sure. I don't know. I just know that I believe Freya is waiting somewhere in the shrouded mystery off in the distance, waiting in case all of time and everything is going to be destroyed, so that she can be the final. That's, like I said, just my personal thing. How about you, Shiela? Do you have any opinions?
No, I don't. It was an interesting question. Yeah, I think one thing is that seniors so often are connected with Frigg, particularly also to some extent with Freya, but are very much rooted with Midgard as we know it, and as Asgard as the gods know it. And I don't know. I have to wonder what the role would be at Ragnarok. Where are they? Yeah, that's an interesting question. But I also do like what you were saying about Freya taking her pick, and why does she get to do what happens to them later on in the story, right? We don't really know. I think what you said is it could be quite valid. So that's interesting to ponder. Thanks for sharing that.
So I'm not sure if Owen is still awake or not, but if he is, let him listen. And if he's not, play it for him tomorrow. So, Owen, when you fall off of your bike, who picks you up and puts the Band-Aid on? Mom? When there's a whole big mess to clean up after the dogs tore up the pillows, who typically has to clean up that dog mess? Mom? Right? Who's got to make sure that you and Alice get fed? Mom. Do you know why? Because Dad's out busy protecting and providing for you, fighting Ragnarok, and your mom's staying home to kiss the wounds and heal the hearts, and make sure that no matter what happens, that there will be a safe place for you and the folk, and that no matter what happens, there are strong hearts and hands to rebuild. We'll never fail, because we will stand behind our men as they protect and provide, and we will heal the hearts and heal the wounds and rebuild them over and over and over again. So that's what I think they're doing, Owen. All right. So also, Gythia Erickson, you've got a couple other people over there that I want to highlight for your leadership as well. And you've got a gentleman in Poland, Asper. Can you tell me about him?
So Asper is very dedicated to building the folk out in Poland and beyond in Europe. He's constantly coming to our Golar and to our Witan with ideas on things we can do to grow the folk out in Poland and beyond in Europe. Constantly, it's amazing to me that the absolute ceaseless ideas that man comes up with, and it's for the better. We don't always take him up on all of his offers. We know some things are going to work and some things aren't going to work. That's just the way it is. We've been around for long enough to know that we have tried, we have experimented, and sometimes things just don't work out. Sometimes we're not ready to move on with a certain idea that Asperger brings to us, but he never stops. He's relentless and in a really, really good way. He works really hard to reach out to our folk in Europe to help connect them. And I know that it's got to be a very hard job in Europe because there's so much space between members. You think that it's bad in some of the states here, where like in Iowa, where you might not have a member anywhere closer than 200 miles away, but Poland, Sweden, all of the countries out there, there's hours and hours and hours of space, miles and miles between folk, and it's hard to convince them always to come out, to drive those distances to get together in person. But he never stops trying, and that's really, really important and admirable. And I believe that if he continues the way he's continuing, he's going to be a very successful folk builder. We definitely appreciate all the work he does. He's very quick to respond, very quick to do the job. And sometimes being quick to do the job is one of the most important things that we can do, because you never know when taking the time is going to end up. You never know when it's important to be immediate in your responses to people or not, because sometimes that response in an immediate way is enough to alter a person's choice to harm themselves or to just disappear and not come back. You never know when they really, really need you to be there right away. So that's something we're always going to appreciate in our folk builders. Excuse me, is when we know that they're going to respond as quickly as they can, because it really can be the matter a difference between life and death for some of our folk.
Absolutely. We had a question from Corey saying, can we give a shout out to folk builder Allie Clausen? Absolutely. I would love to get a shout out to folk builder Allie Clausen. Allie Clausen is one half of the awesome Clausens over in Nebraska. So Allie herself does a lot. Allie helps run the AFA store. Allie runs several calls that are related to several different things, from the sisters chat that's on Sundays to a book club where they discuss books that they're reading. She also does the Sisters Fitness Challenge. She is also one of our Gothar students and an amazing folk builder, an amazing human being all the way around. We're super proud of Allie and everything that she does as well. And her husband, Cody, aka the Milkman in Nebraska, he is an amazing human being. He supports everything that Allie does on top of folk building on his own. He is one of those people that no matter what you need, day or night, Cody seems to be able to answer the phone and help me or help the folk. If you want to know what's going on with somebody, Cody probably knows, because he's constantly reaching out to people. He's constantly doing moods, and he's constantly working towards a better community for his people. So awesome Clausens in Nebraska, cannot thank you guys enough. You guys are absolutely amazing. And we did also have another donation, $20 from Chris Luquette. And it says he is moving to Iowa in just a month now. Can't wait to meet our folk out there and be in and visit the Besthof Baldershof. Man, these Baldershof people in their Besthof, I have no idea where they get it from at all. I mean, I don't know where they get that, but I'm awful proud of them. I'm awful proud of them. So Eric or Chris, we're very excited for you to come out. There's a lot of great folk in Iowa. If you are looking to come to the Hof, get a hold of them. And speaking of Iowa, we're going to talk about folk builder Chris McDowell really quick. He is currently traveling down to Charming of the Plow, so I'm wishing him a safe journey and making sure that he represents the Besteshof while he's down there, and to remind Go the East which one is the Besteshof while he's there. And super proud of Chris and everything that he's done. He has been a tremendous help in things that we've done, beautification and structural wise at the Hof. He was a huge help for the Feast of the Einherjar that we held in South Dakota. He also helps out Odin's Hof as well, helping Shiela with a few things on the back end. So Chris is one of those people that he has a very quiet stoicism about him, and he just keeps pushing forward no matter how long it takes, no matter how much it hurts, no matter what else is going on. He's always moving forward. So I want to wish him a safe and happy Charming of the Plow over at Njordshof this weekend. And Gythia McNallen, can you tell us about this amazing Gothi that we have over there, Gothi Thorgren? He's been quite the staple in the AFA for some time.
He has been, yes. So, yeah. Thorgren is one of our elders. He and his wife, Catie, are well known to the folk out here. They came to us in the mid-90s, just as we were getting the AFA launched. They were there in Monterey area, Santa Cruz area, and we had a lot of big projects we started in those early days. We had the Kennewick Man case. He was very involved in that. There's a really cool picture of, again, that day that the picture was taken where I'm holding the horn and Steve is doing the Algies rune. Thorgren was with me, and the two of us got to see inside the skull of Kennewick Man together. I mean, and there's a picture of us together. It was just cool. We've got such great history with him. They stood up with us when we renewed our vows in 2010 out at our midsummer that we did that year. He has traveled to Sweden with Matt. He did that in 2016 or 17. He went over with the group that went over at that point. He's been around for a long time. He's a phrase Gothi. He's got some great stories about how he determined that Freyr was his patron due to a boar that visited him numerous times in his particular vey in the redwoods. So Thorgren has been with us a long time. He's there at Odenshof. He and his wife have a trailer right next to Odenshof, the Hof itself, and he keeps an eye on the place. He waters throughout the summertime in the heat. He helps get things going. He's heating it up today because we're doing our food pantry this weekend and bringing in food tomorrow. So he was there when the propane was delivered today and is lighting up the pilot lights of the furnaces. So it'll be warm and ready for the rest of us. So that's kind of what he's doing at this point. He's also going to be doing our fray bloat though, come Saturday, because of course our Elseria Gothi is going to be at Njordshof. So with that, it kind of falls on Thorgren and myself to do the rituals, and he's going to do a bloat to Freyr, and I'm going to do. Sometimes we've done Freyr and Freya or Freyr and Seep. We've done various combinations this year, and it will be to Gefjan. I'm going to talk about her role at Charming of the Plow. I've often done that. And it should be very nice. It might have to be indoors though, because right now we have a raging storm outside the window, outside in the darkness, and it's going to pass, but it's going to be back this weekend. So it is likely going to be too wet at Odenshof to even do our ritual outside like we usually do. But he's been with us a long time. He's very dedicated to us. He built a Hof for us at one point, and he actually built the house I'm in right now. He helped us build this house. So yeah, he's family, and he's everybody's family. He's a wonderful man. I hope many of you can come out this summer. Come out for the 30th anniversary midsummer at Odenshof, June, I want to say 20th to 23rd. Come out and meet Thorgren yourself. You're going to really enjoy him.
Absolutely. So speaking of amazing Gothis, I do just want to point out that we do also have some amazing a couple more amazing Gothis down in Njordshof district. And one of those is going to be Gothi Bodhi Mayo. So Gothi Bodhi Mayo is one of my favorite humans ever. He is such a gentle soul, but he'll never let you know that he's a gentle soul. He's got a big heart. And he's so wise. His stories are amazing. His lore retellings are amazing. He's actually one of our instructors for our Gothlings program, as well as our Godar program. He's one of our mentors because his knowledge is astounding. You know, if I have a question, sometimes I will often go to the Mayo to ask my question if there's something that I don't know. He is just an amazing human being, and I can't thank him enough for all the things that he's done for me personally, and been there for me in times when I needed somebody. So thank you very much, Go the Mayo. We also have Go the down in your top district, Go the Ashby. So Go the Lane Ashby, he's been on VNS a time or two. I think him and I did an episode last year as well. And he was really instrumental to obtaining and doing the improvements on Yorthoff. And there wouldn't be a Yorthoff without Go the Ashby. So we appreciate all the work that he's done, all the time that he puts in down there, and everything that he did to make that happen. So definitely want to thank those two gentlemen for everything that they've done. And the other Yorthoff leadership that I wanted to point out is folk builder Jesse Parton. There are very few people that travel as much as Jesse. Jesse is everywhere all the time. He goes to Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma. He is all over the place. He will, I don't know what the best way to put it, but he's the traveling folk builder. You know, he's always involved in things in Thorshof district, involved in things in Njordshof district. He's always involved in Baldershof district. Everybody knows and loves Jesse. He's one of the friendliest and most wonderful people you'll ever meet. He's so hospitable. He's willing to travel to make it to see you. So can't say enough good things about folk builder Jesse Parton. He's absolutely amazing. So thank you, Jesse, for everything that you've done for us. Olivia does have a question for us, and it says, thank you, Gythias, for doing this episode and for all you do for the folk. Which goddess are you most connected with, and how do you connect best with her? What do you do for your bloat to this goddess? I'll give that one over to Gythia McNallen first.
I think Olivia probably knows, because she's been at so many of the bloats that we do at Odenshof. I definitely connect with Frigg, and part of it is it matches my relationship with my husband, and the fact that Frigg is the consort, the wife of Odin. And if anybody knows my husband, you know Steve is Odin all the way. It's just his guiding light. That's where he focuses, and he pretty much always has. He's just got a different path than most people in Asatru. But anyway, Frigg is the hospitality. It's the home. It's what I try to accomplish out there at Odenshof. When we have people come, Frigg is there with us. And also that balance with Odin, and it's made me, certainly knowing I'm the Gythia of Odenshof, of Odin himself, that I often think about that relationship of myself with Odin. We've done some wonderful things last summer, and she knows herself, Olivia, that we had a thing about blue flowers. We did something called family camp, and read a story about Frigg, and the children all did artwork. At the same time, we were talking about what color flower she has. Obviously, she's going to have a beautiful garden. What's in the flower? Well, it's going to be blue. Okay, what kind of blue flowers? But we found what is it? Not flax. Slipped my mind. But anyway, her own daughter, Olivia's daughter, Madeline, did a beautiful picture with chicory. It was wild chicory, and it's a blue flower. And it was just really touching the way we tied all that in that weekend, and doing a bloat to Frigg and the whole thing. And the kids loved it. And yeah, Frigg is always there. Every time we go to the Hof, we feel her nature there. So yes, I've done bloats to her, but we just also just recognize that this is her place, so.
Awesome. Gythia Erickson, who is your goddess that you relate to, and what do you do for her for bloats?
Sure. Apologize. My eyes, for some reason, have decided they're just going to start watering. that's what they're doing. So I mentioned earlier that I feel particularly close to Frigg also. When I became a mother, more than when I became a wife, but that's probably because I was a mother before I was a wife. Thinking about that, but I should think before I speak sometimes. It's impossible to be a mother and not to feel connected to Frigga. I also am a crafter. I love to quilt and to embroider and to sew, and I think of Frigga when I am doing those things, because as the woman of the house, as the woman of children and the household and all of that stuff, I can imagine her sitting by the fire and darning socks for her kids, or making that blanket for her child. That kind of, I think of Frigga when I'm cooking. I think of her when I'm cleaning my house, because it's my home and it's for my children. So I see Frigga everywhere in everything I do when I stop to think about it. I mean, obviously I don't like get up and start dusting my house and think, oh, Frigga would dust her house or anything like that. But when I'm dusting my house, if I'm deliberate about it, the way we should be deliberate about all of the things we do, intentional, I think to myself, I have pride in my house, I take pride in my family, and those things make me think of Frigga. And so that's how I kind of bring her into my everyday life. But also for bloat, flowers. I use flowers a lot in a lot of my bloat, and not because women like flowers, but because I like flowers, and I think flowers are a very good, very natural gift. I also think of water a lot when I bloat to Frigg, because water is, you use water for everything. It's such a huge part of what we do. Water is so clean and pure. You use it to clean the things that need to be cleaned. You drink it when you're sick. You use it to, you put a cool damp cloth on your kid's forehead. You drink it when you're thirsty. Water is just really important, and I think of water when I bloat to Frigg a lot more than I do mead. Not that mead isn't important and all of that, just these are my personal associations with Frigg. Yeah, you light a candle and you thank her for the good things you have in your life. I don't know, I like to keep things simple, and a lot of the reason why I do that is because I include my children in 99% of everything I do. So when we're doing bloat, oftentimes it's just a matter of, here, take a flower, throw it into the creek, and hail Frigga. Little things like that we can do every day. Owen always hails Thor because Thor's his favorite. But yeah, this, like I said, I'm in my mom phase right now. My kids are pretty much at the center of everything I do. So yeah, I like to keep things simple because it makes it easier for them to digest. And it makes it easier for me to be able to work it into my day when it's simple. Yeah.
Awesome. So I am particularly fond of Saga. For those who have heard me talk about Saga, I kind of see her in more than just a lady pouring mead, or more than just, as her name would suggest, as a keeper or teller of stories, right? When Saga and Odin are sitting on the bank, it is more, to me, it is more than just him relaying stories and she's memorizing them. It's to me, it's more than that. It is very much a man having a confidant that he can tell things to without judgment or fear or feeling threatened. It is someone that he can tell his fears to, his hopes to, or anything to. And still keep those things, still keep the legacy of those things, right? Telling the stories, of course, maintains the legacy of the story, but it also gives you a piece of the person who's telling that story. And I think that's part of what Saga does. She's more than just a recorder of history. She's more than just the pourer of mead. She listens and she supports in that listening. She holds those things that you're afraid to tell anybody else. That's what she is to me. And that's something that I've always wanted to be for others. So that's why I'm close to her. That's why I'm particularly fond of her. Things that I offer Saga in particular, a lot of flowers, as would be expected for a goddess, but I have a particular cup. It's only for Saga. It's what I use for Saga, and it's a blue ceramic chalice that I use to put whatever drinks I'm giving her, whether it's wine, mead, tea, whatever that is. She has her own cup because she is the cup holder, right? So that's what I do specifically for her. She's got her own little beautiful chalice it's absolutely gorgeous. I don't have it to where I could reach it and show you. Otherwise I would, because I'm quite proud of it. But yes, Saga it is for me. All right, we do have a couple more questions, ladies, but before we get to them, I would like Gythia Erickson to talk to me about how awesome folk builder Mike Melillo is.
I have a particular soft spot for Mike Melillo. Did I say? Having a moment, sorry, for Mike. Him and I come from a shared Theodish background, which is becoming more and more a thing. Think of Theodism like the Catholic version of Christianity. A lot of us find our way out of it eventually because we realize that there's a lot of flaws with the process. But Mike kind of calls himself like the dad of his kindred. Maybe it's more like the granddad. I don't you know. No, I mean I think he literally calls himself like Grandpa Mike. I know that at Yule, when we were at his house for Yule, he dressed up like a Krampus and he came out of the basement full head to toe dressed as Krampus, and he was walking around with his switch like where the kids, and my children were terrified. They would not go near him to save their lives. Like literally we were trying to get a picture of Owen with Krampus and we had to pick him up and carry him over there, and he was like, no. Didn't work out very well. I think the picture of him is sitting there like this because he was mad at us. But Mike has such a good sense of humor about that kind of stuff. But he's also been around for a very long time. I say in the heathen circles because I firmly believe that the AFA is Asatru and anything else is not Asatru, not properly. So when I say the heathen circles, I mean like everything else outside of the AFA. So as a former Theodsman, one of the things that we really value in the Theodish circles is a very, very, very strong academic background. You read the books, you know the stuff. And Mike has been around long enough that he has read the books and he knows his stuff. And I really appreciate that about him. And he's very approachable. He's very easy to talk to. He's the kind of guy that will absolutely spend 4 hours on the phone listening to you when you have a problem and you need to talk to somebody. We really appreciate Mike in this area. It helps that he only lives like 2 hours away, so we actually get to see him from time to time, not like with all of our folk builders that live in the distant reaches of New England, for example. So yeah, we like Mike. He's a good guy.
We like Mike.
My children not so much right now.
As long as you keep the mask off, he'll be okay.
I don't know. I think they might still remember. No, I'm just kidding. They like Mike.
You've got a couple other folk builders over there that are doing a fantastic job. You've also got folk builder Pat Cook over in West Virginia. and folk builder Joe Drodas over there in Ohio.
Yes, both of those men are men that I am also particularly fond of. I say that about like all of our folk builders. A lot of that is because I've gotten to know them all very well over the course of the last couple of years. Pat Cook, I remember that he drove back before we moved up into Erie, Pennsylvania. He drove 7 hours after a day of work to our house outside of Philly to attend his first AFA event, and he stood and stumbled and he cried because he was so grateful that he had finally found community. And then he turned around and drove 7 hours back home, which I thought was nuts. We tried to convince him to stay because he looked exhausted, but he did it, and he's been here ever since. I know Pat is kind of quiet. He lives in West Virginia, and he's a very quiet kind of guy, but he's a very deep thinking guy. He's very intelligent, and he's so pious. Pat is one of the most pious men I know. And you might not realize it unless you spend some time talking to him. And I recommend everybody get to know Pat Cook, because Pat Cook is just a solid guy. And he's AFA all the way, which is something I'm always going to appreciate, because I am AFA all the way. And like 100%, my life is two things: my family and the AFA. And I think Pat agrees. I think Pat is the same. And that's something that, like I said, I'm always going to appreciate. Loyalty is an important thing that sometimes I think we forget about. Oh, and Joe Drodos. Joe Drodos, I was just at his house last weekend. Joe is one of those guys who doesn't always talk a lot, but when he does, he usually has something valuable to say. So you stop and you listen. He has been quietly and slowly and consistently working on building Ohio since the minute he became a folk builder. He's constantly hosting stuff at his own home out there in Ohio. Him and his fiance are hosting. They have a beautiful property with a garden and chickens, and it's beautiful out there. And even when they only get one person to show up from their own kindred, they still host. Even when it seems like it's not working and people aren't doing it, he still hosts stuff. He's consistent and nonstop. And it's one of the reasons why the Northern Ohio area has done as well as it has done, is because Joe has worked relentlessly at it. And that's something that I think that's just one of his superpowers. He's relentless. He's like a workhorse. He's slow and steady, but he never stops. And Joe he's awesome. I'm a big fan. I guess I keep saying that, but I mean it. I mean it genuinely 100% about all of the people I say that about. I'm a big fan of these people, and we have a lot of people and a lot of territory to cover in the northern half of Thorshoff, and I couldn't do it by myself. We couldn't do it without these people, so I'm never going to be able to say enough good things about them. Ever.
Thank you, ma'am. We got a question of, do you do meetups weekly, like how they would go to church every Sunday in a Christian church? Yes and no. So the Hoffs have monthly services typically, unless there's a wedding or something, some kind of event or something like that. But services themselves are usually once a month at the Hoffs. But there is something going on in the AFA every weekend, whether it is a rune study or a remembrance dinner, or we're having Charming of the Plow at Njortoft. There might be a Charming of the Plow in Ohio. There might be a Charming of the Plow in Missouri. There is always things going on all of the time. If you go onto our websites, it's baldershof.org, odenshof.org, njortoft.org, and thorshof.com, and go into the calendar section. Those will tell you all the things that are going on in your area. There is always something happening all the time, every weekend. during the week, there's stuff going on, whether it's an impromptu moot or whether it's a leadership meeting or a leadership call that we're doing for district members or lore studies or ladies' book studies. There is always something to do, and there is always somebody to talk to. So no, do we have weekly church services? No, we have monthly Hoff services, but we have events or activities or some kind of educational or spiritual thing going on almost every day. So check out your calendars and see where you're at with that. And speaking of awesome moots and events and people being involved in things, I'm going to take a minute to talk about my kindred brothers. So they are both members of leadership, and they are folk builder Jamie Elaine and folk builder Stian Penner. And I'm going to start with folk builder Elaine. I have watched him go from his first days in leadership to his first fall fest to becoming an apprentice to being oathed at the Hoff. And I couldn't be more proud of where somebody is today. He is noble and he is strong and he is good and he's hilarious. Watch that dry humor. He'll get you every time. Mm-hmm. Jamie is amazing. And Stian is disgustingly talented. He cooks, he plays drums, he carves horns. He does metal work. He's an artist. He does all of these amazing things. And it should be illegal for there to be so much talent in one man, because some of the rest of us could have used some of those gifts, and everything that I did not get, I think, went to Stian. I can't draw. I can't play music. I can't sing. I can't do any of these things. Stian does everything. So I got to admire Stian. Stian works really, really hard. He's a very pious man, and I appreciate everything that he does for his folk, for the other districts, and for the Hoffs. So shout out to my two kindred brothers for that. Let's see. I think we had a couple more questions. We've got a question. Is it strange to think that if one of our deities has a need for us, that they will reach out to you in some fashion? So that's going to be between you and the gods, because I'm not going to tell you what the gods do or do not say to you. However, I believe if you are meant for something, that no matter what happens, you're going to be led to that direction and to that end, whether it's by the gods or the ancestors. But when they need something from you, is it that they need that from you, or is that what you're meant to be? Is that what you're meant to do? Are you meant to be disgustingly talented like Stian? Or are you meant just to be good with gab like me? You know, what is it that you're meant to do? What is it that you are called to do? What is your calling? Is your calling to be an advocate for your folk? Is your calling to be a folk builder for the Asatru Folk Assembly and help build your church? Is your calling to be a Gythia or a Gythia and be a priest or priestess of the Aesir? It all depends on what your calling is. I think each of us, especially those that are especially those of us that are Gothar and those of us that are folk builders and those membership that volunteer and help and dedicate their time and all of the things that they do, I believe that they have a calling to serve their gods. Do they directly talk to you? That's between you and Odin. You and Odin, my dear. I'm not going to tell you if Odin's talking to you or not. That's up to you. It's not my call to make. But I do believe that the gods will call us to our purpose in one way, shape, or form. And I think that that can look a lot of ways. That can look like an obsession with getting things done. That can be a divine inspiration of Gythia McNallen deciding to use the word folk in Asatru Folk Assembly. That can be Gythia Erickson doing a Desir bloat that makes every man, woman, and child in her circle cry with happiness and memory. I think those are all callings of some sort. So if you're looking for a specific answer, that's going to be between you and the gods, but I do believe we're all called for a purpose, one way or another. All right. We got a couple more people that I want to talk about tonight. One of them is going to be, Bruce. And the first thing I'm going to say about folk builder Bruce Perrin is get down, you're going to crack your egg, because the man likes to climb on high things and send me videos of him on high things doing dangerous stunts. And the inner mom in me wants to wrap him in bubble wrap and tell him to get down. It's like reliving my children's toddler years, but with a grown man, and he does it just to irritate his Witan. So Bruce, get down. You're going to break your egg. I'm going to bubble wrap you if you don't knock it off. But Bruce is tireless in all of the things that he does for the folk. He works a lot, but he still makes time to travel. He still makes time to do moots. He still makes the time to come to Baldershof. He still makes the time for his folk because his folk are very important to him. So I just want to thank Bruce for all of the things that he does in Wisconsin. Get down, you're going to break your egg. Please and thank you. Hey, Catie, you've got several apprentices over there in Thorshof District who have given folk building a shot and are doing a good job. Do you want to talk about some of those? Can you tell me about Danielle and Mary Jane?
Sure. So Danielle, my husband and I met for the first time when we drove up to Buffalo to attend a moot that was being held by another apprentice, Daniel Tomkill, who I will talk about in a little bit. But and she is a very intelligent, very down-to-earth woman, and I super appreciate that. Very much loves horses. I'm pretty sure if you get her to start talking about horses, that's what she'll talk about for hours. She loves them so much. As a fellow horse lover, I don't mind this at all, but she is a mom. All of her children, most of her children are older. Her youngest is 7, and I think there's a pretty big gap between her 7-year-old and I think her 16 or 17-year-old. Don't remember off the top of my head, I'm sorry, but she is a very hard worker. I know that she just started a new job right now, and it's a very physically demanding job, and still she does what she can to folk build and to build her folk. She still hosts moots. She still does member outreach. She still reaches out to me on a fairly regular basis, and we talk. And I am not the most I am not a very good speaker because I tend to be a little disorganized. I go off on tangents. I like to tell people I don't talk in a straight line. I talk sort of in a curvy line. I always get where I'm going eventually. So that's one of the things that I really admire about Danielle is because she's very thoughtful. She's very intelligent. She's very very concise in the way she speaks, and I appreciate that. She's still pretty new at this, so she's learning. But I have really high hopes for Danielle because I think she really gets what we're doing, and I think building the folk, she understands why that's important, and she's really wants to dedicate herself to that right now. So she's pretty awesome. And then you said Mary Jane. Mary Jane, I love Mary Jane. Mary Jane is down in Ohio. Mary Jane it is impossible not to smile when you're around Mary Jane. She is such a happy person, and she's funny. She also doesn't give a crap about what you think about her. She's going to say what she's going to say, and you're either going to like it or you're not. And for some reason, I know for me personally, and for a lot of the people I know, I don't mind it when she does it. She has a way about just telling it like it is that is perfectly acceptable, and it's easy to appreciate that about her. I know that she takes what we do very seriously, and I know that she expressed to me that she has a love of the AFA that helps keep her going when things are rough, and that's something really admirable that I really admire about her. That even when she's having a very hard time, she's still willing to turn around and talk to the folk and to work with the folk. And again, she is also a very new folk builder. But I suspect that she is going to be around for a very long time. And I'm looking forward to working with her a lot in the future because I admire Mary Jane and I like her a lot. She's a cool chick.
She is. She really is. We've got a couple over in Baldershoff that I want to give a shout out to as well. They just started folk building, and I'm super proud of all three of them for stepping up, especially in areas where we really needed them to. And that is apprentice Jordan Welch. She is such a sunny personality, and she is so patient, and she is so positive. And she's located in Missouri. She's a wonderful woman. She's a mom and sweet, just really there for whatever her folk need her for. And we also have Hope White in Illinois. I got the chance to meet Hope not that long ago, and she is absolutely amazing. So I'm looking forward to seeing all the things that she's going to build in Illinois. She's super hardworking, super motivated, and I really appreciate her stepping up. And we also just had Coke Crawford step up in Kansas. So I'm really excited to see what he can do down there with Jordan and see what they can get cooking down there. He's surrounded by great people down in Kansas, and I know those people have been wanting to get things going and really get forward movement down there. So I'm really excited for them. So thank you to Jordan and Hope and Coke for stepping up and making the commitment to serve your gods and serve your folks. So thank you for that. All right. You got a couple more we want to cover too. You've got Tyler Sagert and Daniel Tomkiel and Jaeger Croft in your district. Catie, what can you tell me about those awesome gentlemen?
I cannot tell you a lot about Jaeger Croft. I'm pretty sure he's like brand new, isn't he?
He is, yeah. Pretty new.
I haven't had a chance to talk to him a lot. Sorry, I know he's pretty new. It was more of a rhetorical question. I'm embarrassed to admit that I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet. But I'm going to fix that as soon as I wake up in the morning. As far as Daniel Tomkill goes, Daniel works really hard. And I know I say that a lot. I mean that genuinely. Most of our folk builders are working really hard. There's not enough of us, and there's a lot of work to do. Daniel is the type of guy who will literally just call people. Mm-hmm. And I know he's done a lot. He's just called people. Because he was willing to just call people to check in to see how they're doing, just because that's what he wanted to do, to get to know people. We know that he reached out to somebody who really desperately needed to be reached out to, and probably saved the man's life just because he might call that man one day. And that is something that we will always raise a horn to Daniel for, because it's important for our people to remember.
I think she wants to go back out again.
That
oh no.
Sorry. It's important for our folk to know that our folk builders do a lot, and our folk builders, most of them, if not all of them, know that call can be the call that saves somebody's life, and Daniel did that one day. A few of our other folk builders have too, but I'm not talking about them right now. I'm talking about Daniel. He's a cool guy, and if he calls you, answer. Chat with them, get to know them, because one of the things that's the most important about our folk builders is getting to know them. They're the people that connect you. They are the community that helps get you involved. And you can only get out of the Asatru Folk Assembly what you're willing to put into it. If you're not willing to put the time and effort into being a part of it, you're never going to get anything out of it. And I think that's something that's really important to remember. Daniel is one of those guys. He's put a lot into it. I think he hosts on average 2 months a month up in Buffalo, New York. Excuse me, that's more than most of our folk builders do. 2 months a month is a lot. When you take into account the fact that most of us have day jobs, most of us have other things we have to do, and he takes 2 weekends out of his month to host events for us. And he doesn't even know that sometimes he's not going to have anybody showing up, and he does it anyway. He's going to keep on doing it because eventually he's going to have a bustling community about him because he was willing to do it and not give up and to just keep going. That's really important. So I remember the first time I met Tyler Sadler. Tyler and his now wife live up in New Hampshire, and they were willing to drive something like 8.5 hours down to the suburbs of Philadelphia to our house to attend a 5-hour moot at our house. And they showed up, and Tyler and Jessica, and I can't say Tyler by himself, Tyler and Jessica are some of the absolute sweetest people I have ever met in my life. They always smile. They were so happy. Jessica had just found out that she was like 10 weeks pregnant with her first daughter, Nora. And they were so excited about it. And I don't think she meant to tell us that she was pregnant because I think they were waiting to tell people, but they accidentally did. So I think we were the first people who knew that she was pregnant at that point. They're awesome people, but they drove 8 hours from New Hampshire because they desperately wanted to find community, and they had attended some stuff up by them that had gone very poorly, and they still had the courage to drive down 8 hours to our house to meet strangers at their house because that's what they really wanted. And Tyler has been here from the beginning. Ever since then, he has been a part of the AFA, and he's been working as a folk builder. And excuse me, my husband and I drove up there to do a baby naming for their first daughter and accidentally married them at the same time. Like, I have a very big soft spot for them because they're just some of the most genuinely happy, positive people I've ever met, and they're building a beautiful family, and they're doing it in the Asatru Folk Assembly, and he's New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont. Those areas have always been kind of a rough spot for us in the Thorshoff area because it's remote. And Tyler has managed to build a really good community up there. And the fact that he's managed to build that good community up there says a lot because it's something we've been trying to do for years. And they're good people. And I have a feeling that Tyler and New Hampshire are going to be thriving for a very long time. And I'm really excited to see it happen. And I will always do whatever I can to help make sure it happens. So Tyler's a cool cat. I'm going to say that after all of them now. No.
Right?
They're really awesome people. And if you ever get a chance, they're coming down to Ostara in the South in March. So if you guys on this call can make it to Ostara in the South, you absolutely should. One of the best events of the year. I'm particularly partial to it because I think it was like my first national event in the AFA ever. But they're going to be there. A lot of our leadership in our area, I'm pretty sure all of our northern leadership are going to be there. So you should make it so you can meet them. And their baby is going to get named at Ostara, their second baby. So always. Sorry, that's one of the best parts about being in the AFA is watching the people bring their families into it to watch babies get named. Being born into it is so much better than just finding your way into it as an adult.
I agree. So rounding out the leadership down in Thorshoff District, we've got folk builder Bobby Shotwell. So if you haven't had a chance to meet him, I'm sure he'll probably be at Ostara as well. He's at the Hof quite a bit. He does a jiu-jitsu moots all the time down there. He's super helpful down there at the Hof. So go down there and check out all the things that are going down at Thorshof. It's not just their services. They're holding moods down there, jujitsu moods down there, and he's teaching those. Bobby is a great guy and a lot of help to the leadership down there. So I want to thank him for everything that he's doing, as well as Tyler Bethay. I got the chance to meet Tyler for the first time at Winter Nights, and he's a wonderful man, and he's got a beautiful family, and I appreciate everything that he's doing. He puts a lot of work in, not just in volunteering for leadership of the church, but he puts a lot of work into his own spiritual well-being and knowledge. And he's just overall a great man and great person to talk to, whether it's about things going on at the Hof, whether it's about your day, or whether it's about, his idea on the Lord. I think you would really like to talk to Tyler Bethay. He's a great guy. And that brings me to Witan Svan. Witan Svan Harrell is one of the Witan and Thorshof district. And we were talking earlier about kind of the Witan have their own personalities. If Cliff is the voice and Dan is the heart, I think Witan Harrell is the soul. So he's very much the guide for the Godar when it comes to spiritual education and finding deeper meaning behind everything that we do. He's an amazing man, and he is so pious and so strong in belief and troth with the Aesir that he's the one that teaches the priests. He's the priest that teaches the priests, right? So he's very much very big part of the soul of the AFA, and we can't thank him enough for all of his contributions that he's had to the AFA in general, but to Thorshof as well, Odenshof, Baldershof, Nurenshof with the beautiful murals. So if you get a chance to go to Thorshof and see Witan Svan or Witan Young and Bloat, please do. They're amazing men. They're spiritually sound. They're some of my best friends, so I'm a little bit biased, but you really need to get to Thorshof. You've got to see a Bloat from Witan Svan, take one of his classes, listen to him talk, listen to him tell you about the lore. And you got to get down there with Witan Young for the same. They're amazing men. Please go down there and visit them. And I think we have a Gythia Plord here with us. Yay! I saw we had the baby on camera not that long ago. Welcome to the live stream, ma'am.
Thank you. I was at work. I'm sorry.
I was
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I was saving this question for you just in case you were able to pop on. So I'm glad that you're here, because I was like, she might make it. If I prolong this long enough, Anna's going to be here. They can't keep her forever, right? All right. So we have a question from Allie, and it was, can you talk about Air and why she is so special to our ladies?
Yes. I'm going to start by telling you why Air is special to me. I work in the healthcare field. I see health, I see sickness every day. And being in Asatru for a while, I've seen our folk the health of our folk kind of ebb and flow. And it's something that we need to pay attention to. If you are sick, if you are not feeling well, if you're just generally in a poor health, you are not going to be able to be present spiritually. And I've also seen, the amazing things that, praying for a person can do. So when we call on Air, we are calling on Air to help with the health of our folk. A healthy folk, it's more of us, it's more people showing up to events, it's those healthy families that we want. We call on Air for, our numerous pregnant women that we seem to be having more and more of. Air didn't used to get a lot of play. I think for a while it was just, all we knew about was Frigga and Freya, and while those two are great, they don't entirely cover the experience of being a woman. Air offers another option. We are also healers. She is known as the best of doctors. That's just another aspect of, you know, womanhood that we have. We have that soothing, healing ability, whether it be as a clinician or a nurse or just comforting a child who's skinned their knee. That is our realm.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I kind of feel like I hijacked the Circle of Air group a little bit. So I want to point out that it was Catie's before mine, before I started getting involved.
And it was Pat Cook's before it was mine, so it goes where it's in the best hand. Like, it goes where it needs to be. So
There we go. So we've got some folks in leadership, Gythia Plord, that we would like you to tell us a little bit about. Can you talk to us about Tabitha Owens, the apprentice down in Arkansas?
Tabitha has been going at this for a while, and she has a very busy life. She has, I believe, 3 little tiny children. They're all adorable, but she is regularly putting on moots. She's, you know, bringing people in. She's very welcoming. She's very, she likes to bring people home. When I've heard when people are with her, they feel like they're home.
Yes. She is wonderful. And you've got a couple more apprentices down there. You've got Amber Cameron down in Georgia, and you've also got Laura Morris in Alabama. What can you tell me about those ladies?
Again, Amber, same as Tabitha. She's very hardworking. For her region, she's bringing folks home. So even though we have all these Hoffs, not everybody can make it to the Hoff every single time. So when we have people kind of spread out, we have people doing moots, that's still that opportunity for people to come together. That's still that opportunity for people to experience Asatru, to experience not just like ceremony and ritual, but actually folk time and the idea of folk building and getting to know who's in your church. You know, getting to know them well enough so that they do become family to you. And I can say the same thing about Laura. She's really been reaching out. She's been reaching out to outliers. She's reaching out to people that we haven't talked to in a while. Again, she's working on bringing all these people home that maybe have lost interest or not, just haven't had time. It's a lot harder to not have time when you have somebody constantly reaching out, because they've got all this time to reach out. Surely you have enough time to reach back, at least a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Got a couple new apprentices down there as well. Jordan in Georgia, as well as Patrick in Texas. And I believe both of those two have been just started apprenticing not too long ago.
They both have a whole lot of enthusiasm. I know we have a great team behind them. Jordan has the Georgia crew, who are all just amazing. And Patrick has Justin in Texas. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they are both capable of. I'm looking forward to them expanding our reach. And I'm really looking forward to seeing Texas get built up. Texas has been a hard go, and Justin has made it work.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do with more people working on Texas.
Right. Texas is hard because it's such a big state, and I'm super proud of everything that they've already accomplished down there. They're doing a great job. So if you are in Texas, get a hold of Patrick and Justin, because there is all kinds of things going on in that area. It's just a matter of find out when and find out how to get there, right? They're doing amazing things down there. You guys, please take a look at them. Get in touch with them if you're in that area. We've got a couple more people that I do want to give a little bit of thanks to. One of them is Folk Builder Otto Refuse. He is one of the folk builders down in Florida in Muirthof District. He's been a lot of help to the Hoff down there. Anna, you want to give us some few words about Otto?
Otto just hit the ground running with us. So he was all over the Hoff. He was looking for stuff that can be worked on. He's always ready with a suggestion. He's not just a guy that will, have a whole laundry list of complaints. He also has, well, this is what's going on, but here's a solution, or here's a couple of solutions. He is fantastic.
Yes. We appreciate all the hard work that Otto puts in. So I got two more people that we want to talk about. The first one is going to be the law speaker. So I'm going to let Anna go ahead and tell us about the awesomeness that is law speaker Alan Turnid.
Alan is great. He's welcoming. He will make you feel like you are family the second you step into that Hoff. He is incredibly knowledgeable. He's a lot of fun to hang out with, but he's also incredibly pious. If you misuse a word in that Hoff, and there's a specific word, he is going to be right there with the jar, shaking it. He is always encouraging all of us, Gothar included, to elevate ourselves, to be doing better, to be being better, including our language, including our dress, including how we carry ourselves. He's fair. He's just incredibly kind, and I do have a bias. He was the guy that did Irene's naming, but he is somebody we are all very, very lucky to know, and the AFA is so lucky to have him.
Yes, we are. Just want
And for some reason, kids love Alan.
Kids adore
Kids
Alan.
love Alan.
Everybody loves Alan.
I mean, it's true, but
Yes.
I know my kids are still like, they've seen him like 4 times in their whole lives, and they're like, it's Alan.
My kids still talk about Alan, and they haven't seen him in a couple years. And they're not little kids; they're older kids. Alan is like the coolest person in the world to these kids. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, producer, but I think that only leaves us one other person other than the 4 of us on this call. And everybody knows who we are. We've been talking for 4 hours. That's it. So there's only one left. Only one. So let's give a thank you to our Share Gothi Matthew Flavel, who couldn't be here. And he's probably fussing, wondering what the Gythias are up to that he can't get a hold of. So we're all going to sign off tonight with a message to the El Share Gothi. Catie, anything that you want to say to the El Share Gothi?
All I can say is, Al Share Gothi, Matt, thank you for everything you do. Without you, we wouldn't have a future for our children here in the Asatru Folk Assembly, and you'll never know how much that means to our family, because there are no words that can properly express it.
Gythia Plore, do you have a message for your El Share Gothi? He's going to have to catch us on the replay.
I do. It is thank you. Because of your hard work, again, our children aren't going to know what it's like to not have a Hoff. They're not going to, be just constantly renting space. We have our own spaces. They're going to know other little children who are Asatru. They're not going to be the odd kid out. They have a place. And that Matt had a lot to do with that. So thank you.
Gythia McNallen, do you have anything for the El Share Gothi tonight that he can catch tomorrow? Oh,
To take the lead, to take over when Steve retired, and he stepped into it a bit uncertain how it would all go, but no time at all. He took the reins, and he has led us all in the most wonderful direction. None of us are perfect. We've all had things we've done we wish we would do differently, but my goodness, the successes he has had, he lives victory. We are all victorious because he has kept his eye on the prize, and keeps us all motivated, and is so sure of what we should be doing. I love the clarity of how he presents everything. There's just never a doubt that we're going to try this way, and almost always it's absolutely the right way. And we're just so fortunate to have him leading. I can't imagine anybody else getting us here to this point. And in a way, we're just still beginning. So it's wonderful to have him at the helm right now. It's made all the difference for us. Thank you, Matt.
So I'm going to start off with saying thank you to the Al Shiragothi. However, I'm going to be taking orders from Mrs. Flavel, and I'm going to give it to him, she says. So we're hoping that you're having a wonderful time at Charming of the Plow. If you want tickets, you can still get those at www.runestone.org. Contact any of the Neuershof folk builders in order to find out what's going on, when it's happening, and how to get there. In the meantime, while the Al Shiragothi is having a good time in Florida, we hope it starts calming his tyrantisms and he gets a good long vacation and comes back rested, in a good mood, and tanned. There you go, Mrs. Flavel. I did that for you, ma'am. All right, I think that is all the questions that we had for tonight. So is there anything else that you'd like to say, ladies, before we head off?
Just hail the folk.
Hail the gods, hail the folk, and hail the AFA. Let's talk to you guys next week. And remember, victory never sleeps. Have a good night.
It's true. Good night.
Good night.
Bye, folk.
Good night, everyone.